Hi there. I'm watching Shaw TV, Channel 4, Saturday morning, and I'm just wondering, has your TV program, Channel 4, been hijacked by some crazed political organization? Freedom for All? I mean, this is not this is kind of strange, and I'm just wondering why you've got this Freedom for All thing on TV, public programming. It's really, really strange. Get it off the airline. It's weird. Bye.
I'm a chemtrail guy, and I'll tell you why. Look up in the sky, white streaks flying by. Got the time lapse so I can capture the blast. Here's the proof for the confused noobs. You want a pair of puppets, it's up high in the sky. It's all water vapor, why would they lie? Little ice crystals hanging out cause it's dry. Dissipate slow so they don't realize. Living in a fog like a bump on a log. Don't you worry, spray text on the job. Keep your mind closed, not loose on a tether. Which one you like, which proof is better? Dennis Kucinich made a mention. In-house resolution 2977. BC Weather Modification Act got repealed. Kevin Falcone didn't wanna keep it real. Modification ain't getting old in Alberta. Seeing clouds you never heard of. The UN in Nagoya, Japan. In 2010, they say they put it to an end. What keeps us down in the mainstream mind? Social ridicule, it makes you blind. Tinfoil hat, hop's gonna get you. It's fear-based tactics trying to affect you. Keep your head down while the chem rains down. Speak your mind, you can expect frowns. A strain from planes.
Good morning and welcome to Freedom Free for All. Today we have a special presentation by Jeffery Matt. He's been on our show before and he's become a friend, and we've had some great conversations as we warmed up to doing this presentation today. So today's presentation is about world communism, the UN and the Vatican, amongst many other related topics. And I'm pretty stoked because it's going to be in dedication to the one and only Jordan Maxwell. He's been on our show 3 times, and he introduced us to Jeffery. And so I also want to mention that one of my favorite topics that Jeffery's really focused on is this idea of crystal blue persuasion. So that's, I think, the title of the presentation tonight. So, Jeffery, are you there? Thanks for joining us.
Oh, Adam, it's such a delight to be invited on and being given a special opportunity to present what I would consider sort of some of the information people know about, but this is what I would suspect at first, where I'm going to really break down world communism in regards to the crystal blue persuasion, which is the UN. A lot of people talk and use the word deep state, but I'm going to try to dissolve that today. But ultimately, this material could never have occurred. And I'm so delighted I'm on Freedom Free for All, but it could have never have occurred unless I had the teachings and friendship and I did my homework. Like Jordan said, Jordan Maxwell was the reason that I'm able to do this. And he did a presentation called The Dawn of the New Day. And I think there's a different version. I think it's called Cosmocrats or Cosmocratos. And you can go to, so you can go to his website and check that out. But this is sort of like a branch off of his work where I'm going to look into how the United Nations is interconnected to world communism and how the Vatican and the United Nations are playing a significant role in geopolitics and basically the New World Order today. So I hopefully you can see what's on the screen.
Yeah, we got your presentation up now.
Perfect. All right, so we'll go ahead and begin.
Okay, sounds good.
So like I said, this is dedicated to Jordan Maxwell. He's been teaching and talking about hidden information for basically, almost 60 years. He's almost 80 years old, and when I meet people, I'm always impressed by different talents and gifts. Well, this man has many talents and many gifts, but one of the things I find most significant is not only his mind and his breadth of knowledge and his depth of knowledge, but his perseverance. and to continually help teach the world, borderline just as a gift to the human family for those who want to know. So this is part of the reason why I'm dedicating this to him. And so let's move towards the actual subject matter, crystal blue persuasion. So this would be connected to world communism and the United Nations. So for those of you who are not familiar with this connection, that's the whole point of this presentation. And the crystal blue, there was a song that came out in 1968, and again, I have to thank Jordan for this. I think it's Tommy James and the Shondells, and you can look that up on YouTube or go to your local library or buy a copy and listen to it. And it some of the lyrics are loosely talking about, "Come yonder, O people, the children of the nations. There's a change coming along." And then it talks about the dawning of a new day indirectly, but some of the lyrics sort of hint at all this. But then the question is, well, how's that connected to world communism? This song from 1968 called "Crystal Blue Persuasion." Well, this presentation is a synopsis, and it is my opinion, and it is my analysis of what's going on. So if there are any flaws in this, I always welcome constructive feedback. But at the same time, this is something that's going to be, you're not supposed to see this pattern. You're not supposed to see this trend until it's too late. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to present it before it's really too late. It's very, very close to too late. And so the United Nations, when it was set up in the 40s, there was lots of hoopla in the early 40s, and then I think it was 48 that it was established. But they had to come up with colors that help represent that, and one of the colors that they chose was crystal blue, not just regular blue, but crystal blue. And in the world today, most people know reds. The communists are the reds. So it seems counterintuitive that I'm talking about crystal blue. And why would the UN and world communism choose crystal blue? Well, here's a very simple explanation. If you're an elitist and money is no issue, you don't have to worry about paying taxes. You don't have to worry about food or lodging or any of that ever. Then you have a lot of free time, and you get people to high-end people, university degrees, MIT, all these Sorbonne, all these other universities around the world to help you build your world government plan. This has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. From a corporate standpoint, it's been going on for thousands of years, or as long as we've been able to draw pictures and symbols, and Jordan Maxwell was talking about that. But they need to pick a color that not everybody knew. It was burned out and used and fried, like the color red for the communists and the Communist Party and the socialists. So they picked a new color that was not tarnished and had no reputation yet established, and they chose it. And so they picked a color that is so mesmerizing, it's so beautiful just to look at that you don't want to look away. And so they had to do that if they're going to take over the world and end the human family as we know it today and start all over again. This is the whole point of the world communists. They want to get everybody in one pen so they basically can end the human family as we know it today, where there's a mother and there's a father and they have children. And they don't want that. They want a corporate environment where they can have a perfect slave that's born out of a cloning tube or artificial womb, and then they can program it with artificial intelligence by scanning your baby's minds, your minds if you get sick, brain scans and personality uploads through Facebook and Twitter and all that. That's all artificial intelligence. You're programming the computer mind so that it can download and upload you and then re-download it, and down the road they're going to be able to create hybrid humans and all kinds of slave life forms, and that won't be able to ask questions. They won't have any feelings. They won't feel pain the way you and I do. Even Putin was talking about that. There will come a day when there will be men that feel no pain and have no fear. And whoever controls AI controls the world. Well, the UN and the Vatican want to do that, and what they're doing is they're splitting up the game so that everybody's looking for the Reds and everybody's looking for the liberals and everybody's looking for this and that. Meanwhile, they're doing both sides. So this is the side of crystal blue. But they pick a color that's very inauspicious and very calming. And so there you go. There's the UN flag. And The UN is not something that just came out in the 40s and was random. This has been going on, like I said, for hundreds of years. When the United States basically lost its republic status and became a corporation, and I'm going to discuss this more in detail. I'm going to try to provide some pictorial evidence to represent what I'm talking about. Again, they had to have high-end psychiatrists and military experts and all the experts from all the different fields to come together to create a world business policy, a world business program, a business model that what you do is you install it in each country around the world, but you got to start somewhere. So we'll start with the United States. We'll have the Rockefellers give the land in New York City, and they'll create the United Nations, and now they can start accumulating members. And over the years, each member that state that joins, you become a member. What happens when you become a member of a club? You don't own the club. You don't make decisions for the club owners. You're a member of the club. So what it does, just becoming a member of the United Nations, it lowers your status automatically. If you're a Canadian corporate citizen, if you're a U.S. corporate citizen, if you're a citizen from India or any of the 193 corporate members, you instantly lose, sort of like you got a little bit off the top off of your sovereignty. So this is something that people aren't really thinking about. Just by becoming a member, you lose a little bit of personal power. But it doesn't affect you in the day-to-day life. You can still crack open a beer. You can still watch, Whose Line Is It Anyway, or football or basketball. And so, meanwhile, this is a very incremental, slow degradation of sovereignty and dissolving the nation states like Canada and the United States and all that, so that finally when they're all so weak, and legally they've been weakened so many times on so many levels, not only with the law, with medicine, with politics, all the other layers of society and civilization, they're going to possibly pull the plug on the U.S. dollars, the world reserve currency, because that is a UN/Vatican bank, the Federal Reserve. And when they pull the plug on that dollar, if they ever do, it would be a very easy to catalyze the change of where the U.S. can't maintain its status anymore, and then now we need a force, a peacekeeping force to keep the peace and protect the infrastructure of society. So that's when Kissinger was saying, right now the U.S. would be in an uproar, something to the effect that the U.S. citizens would be in an uproar if the UN came in, but one day they'll welcome it. Well, this is what Kissinger's talking about. And here is a legend of 11 different shades of UN blue. So for those of you who are not used to those 11 shades, I sure wasn't, this is something that people need to keep in mind, that there's more than one shade of crystal blue persuasion. So here is an example of what I mean by different shades of crystal blue persuasion. You see all the different shades off the beach, and it's very mesmerizing. It's just so beautiful. And so it lowers your guard. It lowers your psychologically, it lowers your guard because it's so beautiful. It relaxes you. Meanwhile, they're taking over through all kinds of business programs that the Vatican has authorized and blessed. But let's take a look at a few things here. Let's start with the Vatican. Let's start with the man himself, the Pope. And this is a Argentinian, one issue. It did not show up anywhere else on earth. It was only in Argentina, only for 1 month. And it says he's the new CEO. And it's in Spanish. And this was not easy to find. Very, very difficult. And so this is the man himself. He's the head of the corporation. Organized religion is a business. If you want to move up in the business, you got to start somewhere. You become what? A priest. You can then become a bishop and a cardinal. And eventually, if you're voted in and you follow all the rules, the business code of conduct, by not being celibate and giving up your personal property and adhering to the church canon law, the internal policies, you too could be possibly the CEO of one of the oldest corporations in modern day history. But they want to limit their risks. They don't want the whole human family looking to them. They just want their tax-free donations, and they want to create energy collection centers and monetary energy collection centers that what we call today chapels or churches. And so they'll just basically tell you stories and have an unlimited version of interpretations of what's in the Bible. But really all it is just a business. And so some of the magazines do understand that, and they're willing to put that out in the front cover for you. But that's if you're paying attention. That's if you were able to break through the communistic Common Core education if you're in North America, where it's not about knowledge, it's about behaviors. And behavior is you don't ask questions. That's how it was in the church when I was brought up. You don't ask questions, sit down, be quiet. So that's behavior. That has nothing to do with knowledge. That is communism. And so here's another example of the week: new management. Here's two more covers here that explain a little bit of what's going on. You know, the popes, different popes over the last many years now have said they really would like to see a new world order come to play. And here's just the latest one. Here's just two covers of the latest one, Time magazine. But ultimately, if you're the boss of a corporation and you just accept tax-free donations and you can do whatever you want with it and nobody can really do anything to you because you're sort of the man at the top and you have your cardinals backing you up, and then you have Roman government, which is Curia. Well, what makes you capable of commanding this kind of power? Well, let me give you one small example. How about 50 miles or almost 70 kilometers of documentation on the history of mankind, period? So imagine if you and I were friends and we went out, we hung out somewhere, and we decided we're going to take a 50-mile walk together. How long would it take for us to walk together? We'd have to bring a couple picnic baskets, that's for sure. And we'd have to go through all of the Vatican archives on everything that's ever been written that's of any significance that was not destroyed and preserved and then kept secret. That's what makes the Vatican have the power that it does. They have the knowledge, and the rest of the world, 99.9999999, and keep going, doesn't have it. But that's not what they want to do with that. They don't want to keep it in old rotting books that they have to spend tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars per year to maintain in these perfectly room temperature regulated rooms and catacombs. What they want to do is go into this to really complete the New World Order. They really need to complete it. And before they start doing that, they have to do two things. They got to make sure the UN is successful at all costs, no matter what, and all the countries have to dissolve and die. It's basically a corporate merger where one corporation buys out the other because it's too weak financially. But then the other side of the coin, at the Vatican side, meanwhile, while the UN is taking over the corporate world through corporate mergers with its member states, the Vatican's working on developing the power and limits of artificial intelligence. And here's an article of MIT saying that AI is tackling the Vatican secrets. And I do want to make a correction. I did do a presentation in the past where I said MIT is scanning all the documents in the Vatican archive, and that was a mistake. This is an article talking about from MIT saying that there are corporate endeavors and using AI to help get access to the Vatican archives. So that's just a little bit of a correction there. And even here in this article, it says 85 kilometers. 80. I was even wrong. I'm sorry. I went from 70 kilometers. Let's do 85 kilometers of walking. That's you don't stop. You don't stop to pull out one document at a time and read it. You'd have to walk, that's like a 3-day trip. That's with no stops. You think we could go through all that the information? No. So they want to take that and they wanted to turn the Vatican archive into this. That's really what it's coming down to. And so, and it is, blue is the color for business, and they're going to take care of business for you. But you know what? To be able to sort of take everything that the humanity has ever documented, taken out of circulation for me and you and everybody else, and then don't talk about it, don't write about it, don't put it in the news, don't put it in the newspapers, don't teach it in the churches, don't teach it in Sunday school, don't teach it anywhere. Just say, it's just a library, there's a couple dusty old books. Everybody forgets about it. Wonderful. Meanwhile, they can roll out the UN plan to harvest and unify all the nations of the world under one corporate superstar called the United Nations. But to do this, you need communism to do it. That was their decision. So here's a couple of quotes from Vladimir Lenin. And this is the one that is the most important of the three. Communism is Soviet power plus the electrification of the whole country. Well, they want to do that for the whole world, and they are. And we're basically living in a communistic New World Order already. It's just that the people don't understand that yet. I'm so sorry. And here's another one. Democracy is indispensable to socialism. And so all the last presidents and other prime ministers of major countries have said, we need to get democracy out there. Well, that's sort of a stepping stone towards communism, or it's a facet of communism, or it's a result of communism. It's all of the above. You know, I know there's people out there who've studied communism all their life, and I'm not an international expert on anything, by the way. I'm just an individual who is analyzing trend analysis, and I have a knack for pattern recognition. So everything you're going to see today is a pattern, and it's my recognition. And this is how I'm able to put together a very unique story about what's really happening to the human family and how the end of the human family is coming to a close in less than 150 years. I'm being very generous when I say that. It's probably going to be a lot less. And so if you need more examples of, you know, it's not just me making this up or pulling this out of my hat. I think this is a president or a prime minister. I think it's either Bolivia or Ecuador. I can't remember now. But he's giving a gift to the Pope. Look at that beautiful smile of the Pope accepting that hammer and sickle, the communist logos there with Jesus on there. So that's a real indicator that there's something awry about communism and the Vatican. You bring him that gift. You don't bring the Pope just any gift. You don't bring him a Bazooka Joe. You got to think it through before you see the Holy Father. Only a handful of people get to sit down and talk with the Holy Father directly. So you better think it through before you give him a gift. So here's an article for those who, I guess the listenership here, I would assume, is upper crust, because that's why I've been privileged to be on Freedom Free for All to talk about it. But this is what people will call a mainstream article from the BBC, which is not always very accurate in regards to moving towards the truth. They put out what they want you to know and understand. But this article is strangely accurate. And so I am going to sample from alternative and mainstream news articles to help paint a picture that they can't lie all the time about everything all the time, or the game is up. Everybody's going to figure it out. And here's another one. The American Spectator is Pope Francis's communist mentor. How interesting. You know, this is like a year, almost 2 years ago now. So this is interesting stuff here. And well, here we go. The Communist Cardinals of Pope Francis. I wonder what this is all about. Well, what if the 9 tail feathers on the U.S. logo with the eagle, the 9 tail feathers, I wonder if there's a connection between the Vatican's C9, the 9 cardinals that direct policy and doctrine around the world. I wonder if there's a connection between the 9 tail feathers on the seal of the United States and its connection to the 9 cardinals, the C9 group. I wonder. But if we really want to start looking at the political aspects of how, because most people, I never grew up thinking that the Pope did anything political, had anything to do with business, and especially I never was taught that it had to do with money laundering, tax-free foundations, moving money around with no restrictions, but we have to pay taxes. But they do, and they're very involved politically, very, very involved. So here's an example of Korea. It's just an interesting demonstration to put Korea in crystal blue here, and also have the President of the United Nations, President Moon at the time, invitation to Pyongyang. So this is interesting. But before we get too much into the political, and here's an example. A lot of people may or may not know about this. But one of the border locations has these 2 crystal blue houses. On the inside, it's actually United Nations sort of like place to do negotiations. It's like a place you can do negotiations. And so the UN has its own little business outfit here in between North and South Korea. But before we go any further into the political stuff, one of the things that communism likes to do is to redistribute the wealth. And here is Fortune magazine. It's not Jeffrey Matt, it's Fortune magazine saying Pope Francis wants business leaders to help spread the wealth. Well, here's another example. And by the way, if you were to find this and read this blueprint, it has nothing to do directly with this presentation. What this is a symbolic representation about how to move forward without people understanding what's happening. That's why they put out dry material that's really boring, puts you to sleep. And then if you're really interested, you have to, to make it fun, you have to be either part of a secret society or be part of the Vatican or be a government agent or maybe in the police or intelligence. And then you combine it all together. Now this starts to seem much more interesting. But this blueprint doesn't reveal everything I'm talking about. It reveals a corporate sustainability leadership outline. It's a business model. It's a global compact. And this picture is very important. Why is it very important? Because first of all, when I don't have a diplomatic lifestyle. I always wished I could have diplomatic immunity. I always wish I could be able to just succeed and have protection, because the world is a dangerous place. But when you take a picture, especially in a diplomatic sense, every detail is tended to. If you go to the Golden Globes, if you go to any kind of concert, everything is tended to. Every wire has to be plugged in just right, or you can't hear the star on the stage. Well, it's the same thing in the diplomatic world. If you see the Pope on the left with the UN flag and President Moon on the right side with the Vatican flag, that's not, well, just go over there and we'll just take a fast picture. No, not at all. This is highly, highly orchestrated. It's sending those who are in the know a very clear message that's more than just two guys hanging out on the back of a green marble wall with two flags. These are interconnected at the deepest levels. And so President Moon wants to honor his boss and the Holy Father and the Roman the extension of the Roman Empire, the Vatican. He says, look what we've been working on while you've been taking in tax-free donations from people around the world. When I was much younger and in school, I was always taught, the UN has no standing army. I was taught that in school. And so I went on Google recently. I don't know if it's still available, but it might be. I typed in the UN has no standing army, and the results is 41,800,000. Now, of course, we'll take away half because it's probably not, it's all mixed up in different ways, and there it is. No, the UN has no standing army or police force on its own. So what happens is they say that to the regular folk like me, and I just accept it. I just swallow it. I go through high school, or in Canada you call it secondary and all that. And so, well, that's fine. And the UN I was always taught the UN's, they're good people and they make things right and they protect the innocent and they protect the poor. Meanwhile, they're building an army. They're building a world army that you don't know about, and you're being taught something else in school. And you got all kinds of distractions, circuses, breads and circuses, and so they put out 500 channels on cable. They'll put out Netflix and Spotify and all these other entertainment centers where you don't spend any time finding out what they're really doing. Not saying that it's not fun to watch movies and listen to music. I'm just saying that they try to bombard you so that you spend the majority of your time on this. Plus, they keep you busy by working 8 to 10 hours a day, and then they make sure they take their cut out of it. Because if you don't go to church, well, at least they're going to get your cut through taxes. Because now they're not getting as many donations, so the UN's a perfect way to keep that money flowing in. And so here's an example of some of the member states converting over and dissolving their Canadian citizenship, their Canadian corporate citizenship, and becoming UN police and UN agents for the World Army. But they'll all tell you in unison, all together, just like a communist group, that this is not an army, this is peacekeepers. I understand why that man's looking down. Me too, I would be disappointed if I found out what I had joined. And so the UN Army is being built all over the world, in all 193 member states. They have little outfits that nobody's thinking about, nobody's talking about, nobody's discussing. and always bringing it to the forefront. So here's an example of the Chinese. And if you think that's a lot, wait till you see how many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands more that are peppered around the world that you and I don't know about. Here's an example that should really help people see the legitimacy of what I'm talking about. The UN goes in, takes the resources they want. They probably went to the Chinese military and said, give us your best. I don't want the person who barely made it through the training course. Give me your best. We want the elite. Okay, here you go. Because China answers to the UN, period. China answers to the royal families, period. And China answers to the Vatican. You don't see that in the news anywhere, but I'm going to try to make that connection for you today of how China, unfortunately, has zero sovereignty as a country. It just does not have sovereignty, period. So they have to comply with the United Nations. That's the bottom line. And if you think it's just a Chinese world army and then the Chinese are the boogeyman, no, they're not the boogeyman. The Chinese people, unfortunately, have been enslaved and have been put in a very difficult situation to be the boogeyman in the future for the whole world. And they're pumping it out through the mainstream media saying that they're the boogeyman. Meanwhile, every country that we're living in is communistic. It's just that's the one that's the most overt, and they're positioning it as the boogeyman for the West. Meanwhile, the UN army is being built all over the world in different countries. Here's another one. Here's an Italian citizen who's no longer an Italian citizen, and she has a little tear of joy, and now she's a UN military representative. She's a peacekeeper. In her mind, she's a peacekeeper. She doesn't realize she's part of the New World Order's one world army, and when the corporations, corporate countries around the world finally dissolve because of either a financial crisis or some other form of crisis, she's going to have to do ugly work to help stabilize civilization as it goes through a horrible transition. And population control is part of it. But she doesn't understand that, and I feel bad. When just like I was saying earlier, there's no standing army, no police. So what's this all about? The United Nations police? I wonder what that's all about. Here's a gentleman who seems to be quite informed on what it is and how it works and what we do and how we got here and what our goals are. And he's just helping people understand, but it's not in the mainstream. What we have is Kim Kardashian, we have Kanye West, we have other people. And by the way, Kim Kardashian's an important person I'd like to make a point on, not just Kanye, but Kim as well. But I'll talk about that later. So here's an example at the UN itself in New York City, honoring their own police force that's being built up while you and I are wondering what's going on in Canada or in the United States or anywhere else in Europe. Europe is being completely devastated. And by the way, Canada is on the verge as well. I do not want to see any kind of overthrow of the Canadian government, of Canadian citizens' lifestyles, of the United States citizenry. I don't want to see any kind of overthrow. As a matter of fact, the key to helping save the human family from this business model where we become the slaves, robots have more rights, have more power than us, and then finally synthetic life, because women and men want to have children with improved traits and all that. So they're going to go for in vitro fertilization. They're going to go for gene editing. They're going to go for hybrid children, CRISPR babies, and all that. Once it finally starts to grow, they're going to have to create new laws for hybrid humans. But the people who are going to have the lowest status of all three is going to be you and me. Robots will be able to not argue and fight in union meetings and all this stuff and take vacations. There are no vacations for robots, but they can vote electronically with AI, and they can outperform all human activity on almost every level, except spiritually. And that's where we have our winning strike. So when we become the lowest form of citizen, the lowest form of life on Earth, and we're going to be competing, it's actually you're not going to be able to compete against the robots and synthetic life. They're building a police force so that when the other countries dissolve, they can come in. It's already all been established. But we need to stop thinking about the police. We need to start looking at what other institutions that the Vatican's been using to help build this new world order. And this building here is called the Institute of Religion. It's the Vatican Bank and it's a very unique building. I think from what I understood, it was established in the mid-40s, right in the middle of World War II. It just sort of makes me wonder if it's not just a great, great place to do a lot of money laundering, to sort of clean up a lot of the money that was going through World War II. And it's a great place to do all that. Nobody understands what's going on. Nobody understands how it works. So that's it. Everybody's devastated with the war, right? I mean, I've never experienced war, so I don't know the tragedy and the trauma of not only the Jewish people, the people of the Judaic faith, but all the Polish people, the German, anybody who suffered in war, period. Not just the Jewish people, anybody, children, women, men, adults, cousins, sisters, daughters, fathers, nephews, brothers, everybody who suffered in the war. We're not taking the time. You can't focus on the IOR while you're in a traumatic environment where your buildings are being bombed, where you're wondering where you're going to get your next meal. Meanwhile, they're reshaping this whole civilization. And so he does take the time to meet some of his corporate franchisees, like Christine Lagarde at the IMF. So there he is. This is not by chance. This is all orchestrated, and he does. She pays her respects to the boss because he is the boss. Period. So there's little crystal blue persuasion there. There's her logo. And here's another interesting partner of the Vatican, or sorry, not the Vatican, but the United Nations. Part of the crystal blue persuasion is Goldman Sachs. I forget the guy's name. He was on BBC. He says Goldman Sachs rules the world. Well, he's pretty close. But, this is an example of all the shades of blue, like I showed you in that legend with all those 11 shades of UN blue. See how it's very clever. Very, very clever. It's not all crystal blue. Some of them are a little darker, some a little lighter. But here's something that, that I see here is very interesting. This has been removed from the internet, so I got it just in time. The United Nations Foundation does have partners, and one of them is Goldman Sachs. So it's not by chance, it's orchestrated. And you see that blue thread that they have in their hands? Let's pull on that blue thread, that blue communistic thread. Let's see where it leads. Oh, here's an example of a corporation that can help process all the money, tech groups and all kinds of new money that comes into being, and they just by magical chance chose crystal blue, as well as New York City Department. The NYPD has chosen crystal blue. That's a UN city. That's where the headquarters of the UN is anyway. And speaking of money and all this and the financing, here's an article that says it turns out that the $1 trillion bailout was in fact real. There's been a lot of hoopla in the news saying the bailout this and the bailout that, and it's there to save everybody, and then it wasn't there. Let me just say this, because I'm not going to be able to say too much about this other than these little components. If you have a job, or if you've ever worked anywhere in any company anywhere, and your company's ever needed or had to tighten its belt and pull up its bootstraps, and you have to sort of be more efficient and not waste in certain areas or spend less time doing certain transactions, it still didn't make the cut. Now there's a problem. The company went bust or got bought out. Have you ever heard of a treasurer in your company or in your office or anybody's work that could bail itself out? That a treasurer could just say, I'll just go write a check for $750 billion and bail itself out. So if it's a company ABC, I'm not saying that the media company, just 1, 2, 3, whatever, is having financial difficulties, can the secretary treasurer of that company write a check, make money, and bail itself out? The answer is no, it cannot. But the way that the U.S. government pastes it and puts it out there for everybody in the world to think is that somehow Tim Geithner and Hank Paulson, all these other guys out there who wrote books and made hundreds of thousands of dollars, think, I was all worried, and we were really cut it close. It really would have been tragic if that bailout money hadn't been there. Nobody asked the question, where did the bailout money come from? Did it really come from its own internal treasurer, secretary treasurer? I don't think so. I also think, too, that there's been a lot of hoopla in the mainstream media saying that the bailout was this amount and that amount. Actually, it was $1 trillion amount. And here the Rolling Stones are giving a partial truth here, and they're exposing that component. And this came out in 2008. And so the economy was on the verge of very difficult, if not total, utter collapse. And somehow, by miraculous chance, not only the correct amount of money came into play, but a huge amount more was available to sort of cushion the blow from such a huge economic injury. And then by magical chance, under the Obama administration, after the 2008 crash, or almost crash, basically, the money was not, my suspicion is the money was not utilized correctly, and it was not distributed correctly, and it was not respected for what it was originally set to do. It was there to protect the whole world. It was there to protect the whole human family, not just the U.S. citizens. And then all by magical chance, a $3 trillion budget comes out 4 years later. How come if we were insolvent, we were about to collapse, how can you get $3 trillion 4 years later? You know, when you deal with the White House, you're dealing with the government. You don't make budgets on a napkin at night after work and you go in the next day and you've got it. This takes years of preparation. How are they able to generate $3.73 trillion budget 4 years after we almost have to shut down all our magnetic strips, all our Interact cards, all our PayPass, Apple Pay, all those digital payment? That would have all caved if the bailout hadn't gone through. It would have eventually created a collapse. Now, I don't know to what degree, if it would have been everything everywhere, but it would have been severe. It would have interrupted, at the bare minimum, would have interrupted everything. So logic alone would tell me, again, I don't have all the answers. I'm not an international world expert, but I can say this with confidence. I don't believe the bailout the bailout did not come from the Secretary Treasurer of its own corporation, the United States. I just don't believe it. And I don't think they can magically come up with $3.7 trillion 4 years later, magically. I wonder who really came up with that money, and I wonder if it was utilized the way it should have been. I wonder. But to dissolve the United States corporation, you have to send people in who are willing to do it. Who's willing to go in, and you have to set up clubs and institutions. And so the Rockefellers and the Zbigniew Brzezinskis and the Henry Kissingers go in there with the New World Order, and they come in and then they set up all these clubs so that they can slowly dissolve the United States, the place that if you're living in North America or even in the Commonwealth, where you can go to a grocery store and there's food waiting for you, and there are places and you have comfortable beds and you have running water and toilets and showers, and you can get a car, even though it's stressful and you have a job. Try going without toilet paper for 2 months. Try going out, but no. We have to have groups that are going to dissolve the U.S. because we can't keep that business model. We have to dissolve it and roll in world communism. So we have a few friends of the big club that you and I aren't in. They're in the club, and they're going to make sure. Here's Robert Mueller, the man himself. He is delivering information. He's full of smiles. There he is. He's working his magic at the Council of Foreign Relations. So these are friends of the business model around the world for world communism, for the United Nations, and for the Vatican ultimately. Here's Dick Cheney. He's doing something there. And here's Donald Rumsfeld. He's having a great time. He's in the club that is promoting the New World Order, the world communism for the United Nations and the Vatican. So everybody's having a great time, but nobody understands what they're doing. Nobody understands what's happening here. So they can relax. Everybody's relaxed. And so here's an example of their website. And I want to show you this as an example here. This is not on purpose. You see on the left it says American National Interests and the United Nations. On the right there's like this blurred out light blue icon of a book. It's actually blurred out on purpose. I don't know why, but it is. And it's symbolic to me. It's symbolic that the color is going to override American national interests. But also, too, if you look right near the top, it says trending, Brexit, Ebola, extremism, measles, and women's rights. I want you to symbolically imagine a hand with each finger as one topic. And that's how they go into your society and they start manipulating. They take their fingers like you're kneading dough. And each finger is an issue. One finger is Brexit, one finger is Ebola, one finger is extremism, one finger is measles, and one finger is women's rights. And you can sit there and because you have the money, you have the Federal Reserve, and you have the Vatican and the UN and the Rockefellers backing this all up, and you've got agents who are going around the world like Kissinger and the gang, the UN presidents, which I'm going to talk about. They're going to help dissolve everything one step at a time, one issue at a time. And so that's how they operate. So meanwhile, the Pope he's coming to America. Oh, he came to America a few years ago. And he said there's 5 things wrong with the world. Well, let's see exactly what he means by that. He says, well, we need to get migration going, right? We need to get migration going. Because that's one way you can really dissolve the country's borders and dissolve the corporate state that you're living in very, very quickly if you bring a lot of people who don't have the skills to be able to adapt. That's really the key here. If I love people from all over the world, okay? I've been to different countries, and I've met people, unfortunately, they didn't have the reading or writing skills to be able to come to, example, Canada, or come to the U.S., or go anywhere, really, outside of their region, and to be immediately able to adapt. Excuse me. And it's not because they're not capable, it's just that their environment didn't give them that choice. A lot of these young people, they grow up to adults and they're very frustrated. It says, I wish I could have had that education. I wish I could have gotten that degree. I couldn't afford it. It's not that they're not capable, it's that they weren't given the chance. So we're going to take all those people who weren't given a chance to be able to reach their potential or to expand their potential, and we're going to start migrating them all over the place. And they can't deliver. They can't show up and be ready to work and be ready to get an apartment and be ready to get a home and be ready to integrate and learn the language. It's basically chaos. It's organized chaos to push everybody all over the world in different countries and help collapse it economically, bog down the courts. There's nothing left to do but just give up and break. And now the problem reaction solution comes in. There's the problem. And so, and then the reaction is we can't handle it, and the financial load and the workload, and the courts are overwhelmed, the prisons are overwhelmed, the social workers are committing suicide because they can't help everybody. This is insane. And the people who are traveling these dangerous travels from different parts of the world, going to different places, from Africa to Europe, from South America or Central America to the U.S. And trust me, they come to Canada too. Okay, they'll come into the U.S. if they get in, and then they'll decide to skip, and then they'll actually apply for asylum in Canada. So it's not like, well they can't reach us. No, they go through the U.S. every day. And the U.S. is protecting Canada right now by doing all kinds of different things like building the wall. And I don't think walls should be appropriate. But in today's world, unfortunately, because of what's happened, they want to dissolve all the corporate nations so that they all cave at once or are very close to each other. The wall temporarily, the best thing about a wall is that it can be taken down. If things calm down and society stabilizes, there's no need for a wall. But right now, it's so detrimental to have it. I don't want the U.S. to die. If the U.S. gets sick, if the U.S. gets a cold, Canada and the rest of the world or any other part of the world gets pneumonia. If the U.S. gets cancer, we're gone. So it's like we're all feeding and living off of the health of the U.S. If the U.S. goes down, that's really the big data. They want to get rid of it. So the migration is part of it. But here in Canada, the Canada, the UNHCR, and Open Society, that's George Soros foundations, seek to increase refugee resettlement through private sponsorship. So basically what that means is they want the Canadian infrastructure to sort of be weakened. And for those of you, and I didn't put this in this presentation, but my suspicion, this is just a suspicion, it would easily make sense. There's a company named IBM that created a payroll software called Phoenix. Most people don't know it's IBM. But magically, just by magical chance, Australia and Canada decide to install it, and it goofed everything up so bad it's almost unrepairable. And so it has severely handicapped the Canadian and Australian government. And it was almost simultaneous. That tells me something. And if Australia installed it first and it got all goofed up, why would Canada go on ahead and buy it anyway, install it anyway, and think somehow it's going to be different. And so that's another way that you help dissolve the Canadian corporate citizens. You know how many Canadian federal employees, if they understood this, they wouldn't be tickled pink, would they? And they wouldn't be happy because they're now under extreme stress, not making mortgage payments, paying for their children, their homes, their lives, and they have tax problems, all this stuff. Well, that's one way you help dissolve the Canadian government so that over time, and like I said, the last thing I want is the Canadian people and the Canadian government to be dissolved or overthrown or made vulnerable and destroyed. And I want the exact same thing. And the key to this entire presentation from a corporate standpoint is the United States. That's the key to help save the whole thing. If the United States survives this, then there's a chance for the human family. Because if it goes down, you'll see synthetic life come in, you'll be a slave in about 20, 30 years. There'll be no jobs because the robots can do everything. And you can't compete, and I can't compete. And then people born with IQs that are increasing 5 to 15 points every generation who don't go bald and they don't get sick and they can't get cancer, you can't compete with that. But you'll still be alive 30 years from now, but they'll be walking around. They'll have all kinds of rights that you don't have, and they'll be benefiting from things that you and I can't benefit from. But everybody thinks it's going to be a beautiful communistic utopia. You got to be kidding me. So anyways, aside from another part of the business model to destabilize and dissolve Canada, the beautiful Canada, and the amazing United States of America, the United States, American citizens. I love them. I love America. I think it's amazing. I love Canada. I'm so privileged to live in these environments where we have so many options and the slim ability to learn and to be able to go to educate yourself on your own without being imprisoned. But here's an example of how the Vatican wants to sort of take ownership of all that. But we have to go back further than the United Nations. We have to take a look at this Triple Crown here. What is this Triple Crown? Well, historically, I would invite everybody to go look this up on their own and educate themselves on it, and also take a look at the symbolic nature of what I'm talking about. Here is the Triple Crown. They're also called tiaras. And so those are the three crowns of the Vatican, and that ball at the top is the world, and then there's Christianity at the top. Well, Christianity is what the Vatican's all about. In 325 AD, they had the Council of Nicaea. You can look that up as well and find out that was sort of like the precursor to the Vatican, the Roman Empire and the Vatican, basically. It's sort of like a stepping stone to what we have today. Okay? Wow, what an interesting coincidence that the Triple Crown and the top of the Capitol building in the United States in Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, the Columbian faction of the Illuminati. Thank you, Jordan Maxwell, for teaching me about the idea and the concept of the Columbian faction of the Illuminati. So here is a symbolic representation of what I would consider the Triple Crown of the Vatican, overseeing all the bills. That's what they do there, right? In the Congress, they pass bills, right? And they charge you, the taxpayer, right? They charge you, the taxpayer. You are footing the bill, and they pass the bill, and then the Vatican gets its tax revenues tax-free. They get it tax-free. But if you're thinking, well, that's just by chance, well, the United States government, well, it used to be a republic, and I would, nothing would please me more for that to be restored. To show honor and respect to the founding fathers who want to see if it was possible for the living men and women and children and the families to have a semblance of freedom and self-determination. And I understand there are flaws in all this. I understand there was slavery back then. And I understand there's a lot of controversy about the Freemasonic edge to the whole thing. But ultimately, the experiment still went through. Is there a place that we can continue existing without having the oppression or the being forced to have no choice? And so here's an example from Cornell Law School. It's just an example. I'm wondering how accurate this is here. It says here in Section 15, the United States. What does that mean? It means a federal corporation. So we're living in a corporate nation. It's no longer what I grew up being taught is I live in the freest country of the world, the United States. It's a corporation. If you think Canada is somehow excluded from all that, guess what? It's not. It's on the Securities Exchange Commission. You just do a company search, you type in Canada, and voila, here you can find Canada is a corporation. And almost all the provinces are incorporated, including Quebec. Here's Quebec is incorporated. So the question that's going through my mind is, if Canada is not a nation and it's just a corporation, then how come my entire life I was taught, about patriotism, loving your neighbor and loving your country and making a contribution? Don't let it get worse. Make it better. Make it better. All that's changed now in my mind, because now I see it's just a business. That's why there's so much corruption. That's why the people at the top don't care, because they know this. They don't care. You go ahead and live in dream world and think that all this is a big hoopla. It's a big song and dance, But in reality, it's just a corporation, and they're going to milk you, and they're going to milk me, and they're going to milk everybody until finally they have enough information into the AI. They're going to make genetic engineering explode, and now they're going to come out with a whole new type of living creature. It's going to be life on demand, just like your Spotify, just like your Netflix, and the corporations own the life, right? Just like the UN has a Charter of Human Rights. The human is going to be the one that has the least amount of rights, because robots are going to take we're going to have a personhood status, just like corporations have a personhood status. Corporations can do more than you and me. Corporations can take over countries. They can collapse economies and villages. They can do all that, and they don't feel any pain. They don't suffer. And so you and I, we have to go through it. So what makes you think somehow we're going to be free from all this? But meanwhile, while the corporations being set up and the nationalities being dissolved over time, they have to do it very slowly, so you can't figure any of it out. So here's UNESCO. Here's the place that the Canadian government, as one example, actually almost every country in the entire face of the earth that's a member state, so 193 members, are donating their most prestigious, beautiful, irreplaceable national treasures of their locations to the United Nations. They said, no, that's not being given 100% to the UNESCO. It's just turned into a heritage location. Canada just decided to donate all these locations. All those yellow diamonds are cultural centers throughout Canada that have been given to the United Nations. And here are the natural sites, all these Rocky Mountain parks and the Green Moore National Park, and all these parks are being given, and all the sites that are going to be tentatively added to it. There's 12 of them down below. This is happening in the U.S. So what happens is you need to transfer. This is what happens to do a corporate merger. If you ever watched the movie Wall Street, he just goes in, finds a company, breaks it down, takes it and sells it off and breaks it up and dissolves it. That's just being done to Canada. That's just being done to the United States. That's just being done in Africa. That's just being done in South America. That's just being done in Europe, in Australia, in New Zealand, in China. It's being all blown to smithereens in Russia over time, one thing at a time. So if the Canada couldn't handle it anymore, didn't have the financial means to sustain the parks, thank God they're already in the hands of the UN, world communism. So you're transferring assets from one corporation to the next, and you don't realize it. But meanwhile, the Pope is going around. It's not necessarily just Pope Francis. It's all the popes. But here's the more recent one. This is the Forum, Time Magazine Global Forum here. The Pope watched Pope Francis address global business leaders. Again, I was brought up in a Christian environment, in a Catholic environment, and I can assure you, I was never taught that the Pope goes and talks to CEOs and he's looking for donations and he's hobnobbing and he's glad-handing and he's baby-kissing and all this stuff, all political. I was told that there's a separation between church and state. This is the most incredible in-your-face example of how that's not the case. There is no separation between church and state whatsoever. I have a whole section on my website that talks about that. But he's even saying here, the 21st century challenge to forging a new social compact. What do you mean by new social compact? Well, let's take a look at one of the most, what I would consider the most insidious institutions in the United States, period. I mean, I think it's Harvard. The three big universities were I think from what I recall, they were opened and financed by lotteries. So the American people back in the day in the Republic, they had lotteries. So you go out and you get your Powerball ticket, back then, or if you're in Canada, you get a Lotto Quebec or Lotto Canada or whatever is, or your local, and you basically those lottos finance the building of what we call today Ivy League universities. And this corporation was set up in 1861, 10 years before the U.S. became incorporated, right around the time where you had the Civil War, everything didn't work out, and have brothers fighting against brothers, and legs are being cut off, 100 miles up or south or north. You have to go fight your own family because you're in a different part of the U.S. So they had a big corporate war to weaken the American people's resolve and to not let it get out of hand where the U.S. could really take off. We've got to create a war, and we'll just use economic because everybody wants a piece of the pie. So they played on the fragility of the human psyche, and they helped start a civil war. But the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, it was set up to bring in all the brightest minds and sort of help prepare the end of the United States as a republic and usher in the corporate U.S., the corporation of the United States. Just by chance, I find it interesting that triple dome there. I wonder if there's a connection. And so MIT uses, and by the way, I'm not speaking ill of the students at MIT. I'm not speaking ill of most likely the majority of the professors. They probably have no clue of what this is all about. They're just delighted and they feel privileged and honored to be in a prestigious environment. Unfortunately, that prestigious environment does not have their best interests at heart, and their mindset and their business approach is not pro-America when it comes down to the political side. You can go to MIT, live your entire life, and love America. It doesn't mean you're some sort of traitor. What I'm saying is the institution has a ribbon of anti. It doesn't want America to be successful and fruitful. It's an institution set up that was put in place. This is my suspicion, to help dissolve the republic and usher in the U.S. corporation. They're using crystal blue here, global panel. And here's an example of what I would call a hit piece. A hit piece meaning you want to take you're not going to represent the story clearly or accurately. Here's one: is China's social credit system as Orwellian as it sounds? Now, for those of you who've never heard of this Chinese social credit system, if you're living in North America, you have TransUnion, Equifax. If you're in the U.S., it's Experian. Those are your credit bureaus. If you pay your bills on time, you get a credit score. Well, what's happening in China is they're digitizing everything over there. Everybody's paying with their phone. Everybody's using digital tracking with the phone, everything. And so what happens is they're not going to just calculate your payment history. You can meet someone who's lived in the mafia, worked in the mafia their entire lives and paid all their bills on time. They have an excellent score, but they live criminal lives. But you also can meet people who have a heart of gold, and they had bad luck and they couldn't pay their bills on time for a few months and everything collapsed. They have horrible credit. So what's going to happen is that's not going to be what they're going to be looking at. They're going to be looking at your personal behavior. What did you say to your children? What did you say at work? What did you say outside of work? When you're going home, what stores did you go into? How much alcohol did you buy? What are you doing in your free time? That's going to be the new social credit score. And if it doesn't meet the guidelines of whatever the government says, then you go into social credit prison. You have to work your way out of debt, and you can't escape it very easily if ever. So here, MIT is trying to give the impression that maybe it's not that bad. It's just a place where you can enjoy the technologies and the fruits of technology, and it's just easy. You just pay with your phone. I mean, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong. Well, everybody's going to get a score, right? Everybody's going to get a score, and if anything happens to you, some guy hits you and your leg's broken in the car and you can't go to work for 3 months, that's not your fault. But your credit score could pay for it because you can't go to work. You didn't deliver. You didn't show up. The company suffered. The team at your work couldn't get the job done, and they were stressed out because you couldn't make it. And it wasn't even your fault. Well, your credit score goes down. Your social credit score goes down, and now all of a sudden you can't rent apartments. You can't take send your children to private schools if you have even if you have the money. If your social credit score goes too low, even if you're a billionaire, you can't do anything with it. They won't let you. You're blocked. You're blacklisted. So that MIT article saying, "Oh, maybe it's not as bad as we thought." Let's read more. Here's how they determine the social credit system. They take all the data of how corporations work, businesses work, and they give it a grade. Well, it's the same thing for your personal life. If you don't like a certain politician, or you don't like a certain school or a certain race or a certain type of person, or you're biased and all that, the phone in your hand has a recording device, and they have it in your home, and they're going to listen to it, and the AI is going to register that as a bias, and it's going to go against you, and your credit score will go down on the spot, so you'll never be able to speak your mind for free ever again, ever, unless you're willing to accept going into social credit bankruptcy. Excuse me. So here's a closer example of what actually is happening in China, and this is from the CBC. So I'm surprised that is relatively going towards the truth. How China's social credit system blocked millions of people from traveling. That's not one or two, it's not 4 or 5, it's not 10 or 20, it's millions of people that cannot take a train, that cannot take a plane because of the social credit. What did they do? Are they all murderers? No, they could have done all kinds of small infractions, and they could have that in combination with maybe jaywalking or throwing a cigarette butt out. When it all comes together, now you can't even travel. If you have family in a different province and you can't even travel to see them, now you're going to understand the real nature of the social credit system. But, people think it's all in China and it's going to go live next year for all 1.4 billion, and it's only Chinese, and it's incredible ingenuity from China. No, it's not. Now, the Chinese people are brilliant, and the Chinese people have unbelievable, untapped potential. And I wish I could go visit that beautiful country and explore and meet the people. I wish I could do it. I don't think that's going to happen in my lifetime. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate. I have to accept that truth. But here is an example of where one of the sources of the social credit system comes from. It's a Facebook patent back in 2015. And just because you see the patent, that doesn't mean this technology didn't exist years before. So the Pope is going to go meet some of the high-end techs, the many tech CEOs, and all the movers and shakers. I wonder why the Pope, who's trying to supposedly help you move forward towards improving your social lifestyle and be more godly, go towards God, go towards good living, clean living, improve the caliber of your decisions, be more community oriented where you're helping your neighbor, helping yourself, you're staying away from the bad stuff like drugs and violence, and you're doing something good with your life and moving towards going supposedly to heaven. Why does he need to absolutely see Mark Zuckerberg? Well, the reason why he needs to see Mark Zuckerberg is because the Vatican wants the social credit system for the entire world, not just China. He wants it for everybody. And so he's got to meet Mark Zuckerberg, the man himself. Facebook patents technology to help lenders discriminate against borrowers based on social connections. That's coming right now. It's not 15 years from now. It's right now. It's going to be implemented over the next short while. I don't know if it's months or a year or 2 or 5 years, but it's going to be implemented all over North America. And if you have a friend who you knew all your life and all of a sudden they went to some sort of they went away for a couple of years, they came back and their belief systems completely changed, and you didn't know that, and you friend them on Facebook, and the social credit system comes into play, and you didn't know that, and your friend's like, an activist of some kind, or speaks ill of the government, or does something that's unfavorable, you won't be able to rent an apartment. You won't be, this is the kind of outcome that could result. That doesn't mean it's automatically that, but your credit system score will go down because you have the wrong friends. And so you can't even write them through Facebook saying, I found out that you have a really low score. I don't want to associate with you. Even writing that means you're interacting with that person. You could get a lower score just for interacting someone on the blacklist or someone who's bringing you down. So you have to not say anything, cut them off. That's dissolving the social fabric of the human family over time. If you're doing really well and you only know good people and you have an isolated bubble lifestyle, you can really do well for a while, but eventually it's going to make it to everybody. And so here's another example. Fortune magazines, we're keeping track of all the Facebook scandals so you don't have to. So one of the reasons why I put this article in here is just to help you understand the reason why the Pope is visiting Mark Zuckerberg is because he's going to help implement this plan for the entire world. And he's really made a significant contribution by having people update their Facebook profile for years. All that time that you did to update, you did it for free. You didn't get paid a dime. Now you got to use the service for free, but you also give up all your personal time, who you're dating, where you go, who you vote for, where you went to eat. And that's feeding the artificial intelligence, and that's ultimately what they want. And Mark Zuckerberg is the perfect guy to do it because he was chosen, he was profiled most likely by the intelligence community because he doesn't feel shame or he doesn't feel guilt the same way other humans do. And so that's what they do. When you get vetted to join these intelligence agencies, they probably ask you questions that are outlandish because they want to see how you respond. They go through your file, they go through everything you've ever done, they have a way to get it all, and they comb through it, and then they do interviews to see if you're really the right fit. And if you are the right fit, you become their boy, their golden boy. And so one of the reasons why he's willing to go through all these scandals and there's no repercussions, everything's great. He's just, I'll just work harder. And he spends the last several years apologizing on CNN every few months. I'm real sorry. We're going to change our policy. We're going to work harder for you. We care about the people. The reason why he's able to do this is because he doesn't feel shame or guilt the same way the average person does. He was handpicked because he's not interested. He's interested in what he's doing. He's interested perhaps in the empire, whatever he's interested in. He doesn't feel the same way as most of us do. And so here's an example. You can be unethical and still be legal. That's the way I live my life. That's Mark Zuckerberg on March 5th, 2004. And this is from the New York Times Tech. This is where they got a quote from him. Now, I don't think that Mark Zuckerberg would have enjoyed having that private message put out there in the public, but ultimately he's okay with it because his mindset and his personality seem to be geared towards it's okay, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and if everybody else gets caught up in the in the snowmobile, the snowblower, and they all get ground up in the meat grinder, there's no problem because I'm running Facebook and you're not. I'm a billionaire and you're not, and I don't mind apologizing every 3 or 4 months for a scandal while I'm getting incredible stuff done for the New World Order and world communism. Now, if he understands what he's doing, it's even worse. If he doesn't, I feel bad for him. And I've never met him personally, so I've met people who've made horrible, horrible business choices, but when I sit down with them on a personal level, they're actually all right. But for some reason, they're willing to make unbelievably bad, poor decisions in the business world, and so they're perceived as really bad people. So I want to give everybody a chance, but his behavior with scandal after scandal after scandal is really something else, and he even admits it here. And this is the best part. He's living a 100% legal lifestyle, 100%. So that's how he's able to do it. He doesn't do anything that's illegal ever. He just takes and takes and takes through the corporation and guides it towards the UN and world communism. Here's an example with Apple. Tim Cook is going to go get his sermon from the boss man himself, and he's going to move all the iCloud information to China. And so I think in this interview he even said one of the first things you should do is if you don't agree with something, say something. And so I'm going to respond. I want to thank Tim Cook. He says, if you want me to say something, here I am. I'm saying something. I don't agree that China should be enslaved and that you should harvest all my data, everybody else's data, and I get nothing in return, and just give me a computer that I can't take the battery out. There's a permanent recording device that records everything in my living room forever, and you're going to feed the AI, and you can enjoy sitting on the throne of $1 trillion company when they have slave factories and suicide nets, and you don't tell the average person. If people knew that there are Chinese people in agony, psychological agony. They can't make ends meet. They're under extreme pressure to make iPhones, and their people are committing suicide. I don't think as many people would buy iPhones. But what happens is that the stockholder doesn't care about any of that. That's the magic of the system. The stockholder doesn't care if billions are dying. I need my retirement fund. And so what they do is they create a cannibalization of the free market. They make the person who's working hard at their job, they get a little extra money. They invest it in something that's going to create unbelievable suffering. But if that suffering and that slavery isn't touched, then they get their retirement. But if that, and so they want the retirement, but they don't want the slavery. You can't have both. They set it up that way so that you can't win and everybody's losing except for the people at the top. And I don't know if he understands this, and if he does, this is a very sad situation. Here's Eric Schmidt, the previous head of Google for a while, meeting the Pope as well. He's getting his approval, his good job. And here's a document that reveals Apple's users of Google Public Cloud for iCloud. Apple uses Google's public cloud for iCloud. So basically they're all connected. And where did they go? Well, he went to China. I think this is before the last picture with the Pope. I think they set up shop there quite a while before. And so today, what's happening in the alternative world, and even a little bit now in the mainstream, they're saying that the Chinese public social credit system is all Chinese. No, it's not. It's not. It all came from the U.S. and maybe a few specks somewhere else. It's primarily the U.S. And so they're painting the picture that it's supposedly, and it is a laboratory, and people will suffer to iron out the kinks for AI and the social credit. There will be people who will not be able to continue, and they say, I can't believe it. My phone prevents me from renting an apartment. My phone prevents me from taking a bus, from taking a train, because I made a mistake, or I said something I shouldn't have said, or I went somewhere I shouldn't have gone, or I threw my garbage out the wrong day too many times in combination with poor job review, and it all combines, it comes down, and they collapse. Well, it is a laboratory, but is it only Chinese? I don't know. Maybe Germany might be going towards that as well. Germany edges towards Chinese-style rating of citizens. I wonder if it's going to be global, like I've been talking about for almost 2 years. Here's an example of Angela Merkel, who seems to be on very good terms with the boss, and so they're getting along, which is fine. People getting along, I have no problem with that. I do have a problem if they're getting along and everybody's going to suffer. And so here's something that I find interesting that she said, wearing her crystal blue outfit. Merkel, the nation states must today be prepared to give up their sovereignty. So I find that she's definitely a favored nation corporation state that's going to help bring the end of independent sovereignty, and that's what the EU is all about. It's the only way to get all the nations to fold into. Remember how I was saying, if you become a member of the UN, you lose some of your sovereignty. Well, in the EU, it's in Europe, it's going to be through the EU, and that's how they do it. But it doesn't stop there, just in China or maybe Germany, where they're going towards a social credit. Here's Maduro in Venezuela meeting the boss man himself, right? And so here's an example of how in Venezuela they also want to begin the process of creating a social credit system. And so this is a communist environment, right? They'll say, no, that's different. That's socialist. Well, socialism and communism ultimately meet at the end of the day. And here's an example of crystal blue persuasion. I grew up thinking that communists were the Reds. But here, he's wearing crystal blue on purpose, and all the hands are together, all in a communistic way. This is an example of what I'm talking about. Crystal blue persuasion. And so it's very, very mesmerizing. Most people would see him wearing that shirt and say, that's crazy. It doesn't even match anything. Why would he wear that? He's in trouble right now, and he's reaching out to the world communistic state through the media, sending a diplomatic / esoteric reach out for help. Help me not lose power. I want to keep this place communistic. Help me. So that's how it's done symbolically. But here's another example. Let's stop talking about all these other places. Let's look closer to home here. Here's the UN in New York City lit up with the UN blue. And here's one of its main outfits that helps make sure that, and that doesn't mean all the employees are like that, but let's see. National Security Agency. Now, the National Security Agency, I cannot speak on behalf of the employees, but I would just say this. If you're working for the National Security Agency, you right now the requirement is that you need to have a high definition microphone in everybody's home, maybe their bedroom or their living room, through the computers, the television, the smartphones, and eventually with the Internet of Things, the toasters and the fridges and all that. You need that connection to maintain this business model where you can dissolve the human family, dissolve the United States, and eventually help usher in the UN as the master corporation that everybody's going to psychologically and emotionally accept. Does that mean that everybody who's joined the NSA wants that? No. Does that mean that when they join, they understand this? I don't think so. I think what happens is they apply in their 20s, unless you're on the inside and you're in a family who's been in intelligence on multiple generations. They like to do that. If you're not under those circumstances, you don't find out about this either ever at all, or if you do find out about it, it's called security clearance. It's called the end of your career, and you can't do anything of it. Dishonorable discharge, or you'll be arrested for leaking or whatever it's called. They have all kinds of laws to prevent you, so you can't say it worked for the rest of your life. Even if you found this out, you can't say anything to anybody because your life's in danger. So what I'm doing is I'm explaining it because I'm not part of any of this, and so I'm just noticing that I didn't build this sign, they did. And I suspect that the NSA does help protect certain things for the American people, and there are good people in the NSA who mean well and want to do well, and if they found out about this, they would be in an uproar, and those who do, they can't do much about it. They're being silenced. Why? Because the core of the infrastructure is not U.S., it's international. Okay? It doesn't say the United States Security Agency, it says the national, United Nations. Okay? So again, I want to be very clear. Not everybody who's in the NSA is a boogeyman and a sellout and a traitor. What I'm saying is that there are a few in there that are, and those who are good people who want to make America great and want to protect the life that we've been able to build up in civilization and stop destroying the environment and stop destroying everything else. You need, I need your help. I need your help because the country's about to go under. I don't know if it's going to be in 2 months or 15 years, and I need your help. So here's another person, Michael Hayden. He was head of the NSA, I think, and as well, I think even maybe the CIA as well. Michael Hayden says the NFL protests put me down with Copernic. So supposedly there's a whole thing with the NFL where people were kneeling during the anthem. Why would the 4-star general, Michael Hayden, former CIA director and NSA advisor, say this? I don't understand. I just don't get it. Like, the U.S. gave you a career. Your family brought you up. They fed you. They paid taxes. They paid in. They contributed to society. And then you go in and say, I don't think of the U.S. I don't think so. I whatever. Well, he's willing to write a book about it and put it in crystal blue. I wonder if he knows the business model at the very top. I wonder. I really do. I wonder. And here's the United States Joint Force Command. He was one of the people that helped set that up. And you see the United States in baby blue? That's not by chance. And that eventually turned into U.S. Cyber Command. So here's another example of crystal blue persuasion. By the way, if you think this is all fabricated from me, the reason why I have these pictures is to help dissolve that I'm just making this up as I go along. There is some creative content. I'm making a comment, and I'm doing trend analysis, and I'm going through pattern recognition. So there's always going to be room for improvement, and if I make a mistake, I would hate to make a false accusation of anyone. So I always want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But these symbols tell me something about the true nature of how the world high-end players, the big club that you and I are in, they set up shop inside the U.S. to dissolve the U.S. so it's gone forever. I'm not on that team. So it is beautiful, the crystal blue persuasion. It's so beautiful, so captivating. Let's see what's happening at the CIA, since we talked about the NSA. Here's the CIA director. He was worried about his vote for communists. So people say, well, CNN, they're nothing truthful about it. I think this is one of the only times, one of the rare occasions that they're semi-accurate. Here's another one. Ex-CIA Director John Brennan. I froze when asked, have you ever worked with or for a group that was dedicated to overthrowing the U.S.? I thought back to a previous election where I voted for the Communist Party candidate. Interesting. CIA Director. Interesting. Communist. Crystal Blue Persuasion. CIA Director John Brennan admits the U.S. foreign policy could spur terrorism. I wonder if he knows that he's part of the whole process. Here, if you want to join the CIA, you sure can. You can go to their website, go to the careers and internships, and they've decided to put it right in your face. All positions located in the Washington, D.C. area, and they give you a 4-step process to do that. Here, they even have a YouTube page in case you didn't find it through the CIA directly, their website directly. You can find it through YouTube. They give you sort of a breakdown how to apply to the CIA, what are the do's and don'ts. But just by magical chance, they are using Crystal Blue to represent Washington, D.C. How interesting. There it is again, just to make sure that everybody gets the picture. And so the CIA has been hard at work around the world, bringing in the drugs and doing drug running and helping impact the human family through music and entertainment through Hollywood. And I can assure you they're quite well aware of what's going on in China and the supposed Great Leap Forward. There's a documentary you can listen to and watch it and learn a lot. And if you think it stops there at the CIA, it doesn't. Here is a picture. It's very difficult to get a hold of. And I want to thank again Jordan Maxwell for helping me understand that supposedly there is some sort of a story where Jesus gave the Ignatius Loyola, the head of the Jesuit order, a red flag. Okay? So this is an example of that. Now, this is a leap that I'm making because I thought about it. You know, Napoleon, I've seen this picture I don't know how many times over throughout my, my high school and on the internet and through research and talking. I've seen this many times, but I never really thought about that red cape, that red giant cape or flag around him. I wonder what that's all about. I wonder if the FBI could have been founded in 1908 by Napoleon Bonaparte's nephew, Charles Bonaparte. I wonder about that. And here he is, Charles Bonaparte, who is one of the people who helped establish the FBI. So, again, this is something you can go look up on your own. His parents was Jerome. I think Jerome's brother was Napoleon, I think. It's something you can look up on your own. And so I want to go through the red, which is considered the communists. I want to do the magic of Crystal Blue Persuasion. And so we're going to use both colors because that's what the UN wants. You don't want to go one color at a time. You're going to use both at the same time to get the job done as fast as possible. So with the magic of using colors, you can now transform the communist Jesuit background, and poof, you can have, example, J. Edgar Hoover's book, What's the Communist Bosses Are Doing Now to Bring America to Its Knees, Masters of Deceit. You can now transform have a communistic thread in the business model of the FBI and to serve the communist world model. Why am I saying that? How am I able to come to this conclusion? How am I making this kind of leap of faith? Well, it says here on their website, International Operations. I was always brought up thinking the FBI is a U.S. outfit, but it looks like they have, that's possible. They can have an outfit, maybe a few offices around the world because maybe a criminal's, skipping town or something like that, or some real bad guy. And I have to say, FBI, they do take care of heavy criminal activity, and they protect us so that I go out in the street and I don't have to worry about being a war zone. So the FBI is the agents are important. They're helping society. I would say a large segment of them are excellent. They're good people and they mean well. And I don't think they know about this, except for maybe middle or upper management. They may have a hint about it, and some of them do exactly what it is. But look how many overseas offices they have. I always thought the FBI was just a local U.S. thing. It's not a local U.S. thing. Look how many offices they have to make sure everything's under control while the UN is being built up. And that the regular FBI agent has to go out there and if he doesn't believe in world government and world communism, he's not going to get, or she's not going to get promoted, and they're not going to understand why. They're going to be left behind. So the good people in the FBI are being silenced. Same thing with the NSA and possibly the CIA. And so here are all the offices around the world. So the FBI is an international outfit. And my suspicion is that it's Jesuit, and it's French, and it's Vatican. So here's an example of a gentleman, Mr. James Comey. And so here's a book, A Higher Loyalty. I wonder what that's all about. I wonder what that means, a higher loyalty. So here's an example. It was very difficult because 1908, when the FBI was founded, they didn't have the crystal blue persuasion established yet. So most of the buildings that were built didn't have blue peppered throughout all the buildings like maybe the NSA does on their front lawn, or the CIA does with their website and other features and other aspects of it. So a lot of the FBI buildings didn't have it built in, but some of the newer buildings, they're now putting it in. They're putting the color in there so that the people who are in the know can finally, those are the ones who are promoted. Those are the ones who get to move up, because we're moving towards the end of the United States, and we're going to eliminate the chance of having a republic so that the world government can finally take over everything. And that we've got the people in the big club, they got what they want. And so this is what really drove the final nail in the coffin for me. Here, I think, is an office in Honolulu, Hawaii, where they built a more modern, recent building for the FBI. And look at the FBI logo, and they put crystal blue paint on top of it. What does that mean psychologically, symbolically, and practically? They're putting it on top of the FBI. So I know there's some FBI agents. I apologize if you listen to this and you're disappointed or you're frustrated with me. Don't be angry with me, and I'm sorry if you're feeling frustration. This is what it is. And if you want a credit card, one of the banks that sponsors some of these outfits, they want to give you your UN Blue credit card. It is the official card of the FBI National Academy Associates. So that's something else too. And here's an example of a national training conference where it says in 2018, the FBI NANA, the National Annual Training Conference, one profession and no borders. Isn't that what the Hillary mentioned in one of her speeches? That I want a world with no borders. Well, they're training our good men and women in the police outfits to think about no borders, to be trained under the psychology of no borders. And what if there are no borders in North America? What if there is actually a constitution-free zone that swallows up 90% of everybody in the corporate provinces under the corporate umbrella of the Canadian corporation, and that everybody, the majority of the human population in the U.S. and Canada is on this orange line at the top? And so basically, I'm not really in Canada, technically. I'm in supposedly a constitution-free zone. There's no border. They can break down your door. They can come in and do and say and take anything you want. You're gone. And what are you going to do about it? You don't have the money, and you don't have the power, and you don't. And there is no law. There is no law. That's really what I'm trying to say. There is no law. Okay? So, and here in the FBI, there's an operations center. If you want to contact them, you can contact them on their phone. Look at the back wall there, crystal blue. So this is an operations center, and you can call on their priority phone. Red means priority. Just like when the president in some of the old movies in the United States, the president would have a red phone if there was an emergency. Well, this is what they're off of their website. They're saying, give us a call if you know if there's something wrong. And so I do think the FBI agents who are protecting the American citizens, the U.S. citizens, and other people around the world through their services. I commend them for helping bring good things and protecting society so I can enjoy my life. I'm just not interested in the internationalist communistic thread that's running through it. That's the part I'm not interested in. And so here's the Communist Party of the United States saying, and I think they're very, very supportive. They really want to make sure that the Mueller investigation is protected, and we don't want to destroy democracy. Well, democracy, as Lenin said in one of his quotes, is paramount to helping establish socialism towards communism. So there he is. Now, I don't know if he's in on it or not, but if he is, boy, he sure is well positioned to do it. So I always want to give the benefit of the doubt. Well, I don't think I will ever be given the benefit of the doubt. I hope I would. But I don't, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he doesn't know. So here he is with Brennan and the gang at an international conference on cybersecurity in 2013. Me too, I'd be laughing if I could do anything I wanted. And so here's the FBI NAA, And so their logo has the crystal blue persuasion, their logo crystal blue persuasion. And if you want to graduate from the FBI somewhere abroad in one of those, 40 or 50 offices, there it is in crystal blue. And if you're a youth leadership program, well, you can always join up, and we'll make sure when we do the photo op, we'll make sure that beautiful young women who have a lot of potential, a lot of aspirations to do the right thing, you're going to be joining the UN and fulfilling the Vatican's desires, corporate desires. Here's another one. I don't know this person. I've never met him, but here's an article saying, exposed. School shooting survivor turned activist David Hogg, father in the FBI, appears to have been coached on anti-Trump lines. So I don't think children, under any circumstances, after such a horrific, traumatic incident, should be coached in any way to politicize their teenage life. Enjoy your youth. You only get it once. Most children don't even have the privilege of having a comfortable life in the U.S. or Canada. There's people in Africa, China, South America, they would die to be able to come up here and have the difficulties. Do I go to the movie theaters? Do I go to the store? Do I go to see all my friends in school and have all the luxuries that we have here? There's a lot of people who are envious of the United States and Canada, big time. So I would never politicize a child. I hope that's false. I honestly hope that's false. Against the Catholic grain, Pope Francis trumpets socialism over capitalism. I wonder why. Let's see what's happening in the USSR. The Soviet Union, the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republics. So people will say, well, socialism is not the same as communism. How come in the USSR, in the actual title, it says the Socialist Republics, but everybody knew it as communists? It's because it's the same thing. Thank you, Jordan Maxwell. Putin, communist ideology similar to Christianity. Lenin's body like a saintly relic. Like saintly relics. So even Putin understands the similarity and how it really comes from the Holy Father, the Godfather. And if you think it ends there, crystal blue persuasion, uranium-1. I wonder what's happening with that today. I wonder where it's really going to go. I wonder who's really involved. I wonder who is making sure things happen for world communism. And so if you look at this logo here, uranium-1, you see the crystal blue and you also see the green. I wonder if there's other internationalist outfit that have chosen to follow suit. How about Bayer? How about the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network? These are small examples out of hundreds and hundreds of corporations. But if you were to look at all the logos and piece it all together, you're going to start to see a small network of corporations that know the inside plan, and they give each other indications and symbolic indications that, yeah, just go there, and we'll give you a job if you're on the inside. And these are the corporations that are moving towards putting this plan together. Okay? So, again, here's an example of what would seem ridiculous, that here's a man out in the open. He's a living target wearing this color when his regime is under severe pressure right now. And he's wearing basically come get me color. It's the worst color to wear. It's the non-camouflage color. It's world communism. He needs help. He's asking for the communist world movement to help him in his dire straits where he's at right now. And one of the companies that came out of Venezuela is called Smartmatic, and they use those to help. From what I heard, I can't know this for sure, so you do your homework. That's the whole point of this presentation. You follow up and you take this to the next level, that they help get Maduro in. They use this technology, and it's a Venezuelan-owned, a Venezuelan-set-up corporation called Smartmatic. And here it is. A reliable voting process grants legitimacy to the elected representatives and is fundamental tool in strengthening of democracy. We're not an elections company. We're the elections company. And so communism is just one. There's not 10 parties. There's one party. So that was the party's voting tool to make sure it works out for the Communist Party. Well, now it's in the U.S., okay? So here's just an outdated example of how it's already implemented in the U.S., okay? So, have fun with that. crystal blue persuasion. So here's another example of something I find interesting. Look at these symbols. I wonder who this is. These people, these gentlemen seem to be part of the Knights of Malta. Knights of Malta is a Catholic outfit. So I don't know a lot about them, but I know that they're very, very significant, and they're very, very powerful. Very. I mean, it's just unbelievable how powerful they are. So, oh, wait a minute. Here's the Queen of England. She's wearing the Knights of Malta cross, or the Knights of Hospitaller, or the St. John's. Basically, from what I'm understanding, and if I make a mistake, I'll make a correction, but she's part of a Catholic order. Interesting. Catholic order. The whole Commonwealth is subject to the Catholic order, if she's part of it. And here, I from a color standpoint, this is a pecking order displayed in your face if you can interpret the color scheme. She's the top of the pyramid, and President Xi is showing respect by being in her company, but he must dress accordingly, and he must be color coordinated to demonstrate clearly who is in charge, who's the boss. Just like if the Pope is wearing white, in this case, she's the boss, she's wearing white, and he must not contradict, and he must be diplomatically accurate, and he must show respect to the Queen. And so this is what he's doing. He's wearing the appropriate color for this photo op, this diplomatic opportunity. And so this is the pecking order. Let's see what's happening in China. China. I feel my heart goes out to all the people in China. There's so many good things about the Chinese people, but I know there's some horrible, horrible things happening out there. And so I don't want to blame the people. I want to look at who set up China the way it is today. And I know George Bush Sr., UN ambassador at the same time as Richard Nixon was president, sending Henry Kissinger on over to help decide for the UN. While George Bush Sr. was the UN ambassador, they helped most likely somehow make some sort of move or contribution to make sure that of the two governmental infrastructures, the Republic of China and the People's Republic of China, the Communist Party, the one that the UN voted on was the Communist Party versus the Republic of China. And so that's why today, and even when President Trump got on the phone, he called Taiwan as one of his first actions to show respect to the Taiwanese people. So again, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And here, Google is still working on Chinese search engines, says employees. Google Sundar Pichai comes to America and lies through his teeth. He lies through his teeth. But meanwhile, while they're building up the communist network in the in China, meanwhile in the United States, they're sending in their communist-colored crystal blue persuasion vehicles to help install fiber so that we can get everything ready for the 5G, 6G, 7G network. And so AI can take over. And when you have 5G, everybody's thinking, I can download a movie in 2 seconds. That's not what it's about. It's about transitioning every financial facet through 5G. And who has the most advanced technology in 5G that's publicly understood and known is China. You go to Google Trends and you type in 5G. The country that has the most search, the most hits, and the most research, and the highest popularity and density is China at the bottom. It's China. And so if you have a Chinese Huawei 5G network installed all over Canada and the United States, all the financial transactions have to go through their technology, their patents, their laws, their infrastructure behind the Great Firewall. And now you no longer have a United States of America. You no longer have a Canadian people proud to be Canadian and proud American people in the United States of America. It's been replaced, and it's been technologically and financially siphoned, and and asset transition, and financial banking transition over to a Chinese patented technology through the Chinese financial infrastructure. So this is something people need to understand. If you're doing all your banking through 5G, because that's why they need that speed, so they can get everything overnight and it can do the transactions quickly. Do you need a local bank branch every 2 blocks in your village, in your town, in your city? No, you don't. You're going to do it all online. So all the American banks are going to start to shut down their branches, and then you're only going to have 3 or 4. And then next thing you know, they're going to say, well, we'll just do everything online. Now you have no more American banks. And the American banks, they're going to go wherever the money is, wherever the clients are. So they're going to go where, and they have to submit to the technology patents. And did the banks own 5G? No, the Chinese technology companies own it. China's war on VPNs create havoc at foreign companies. So if you're an American company and you've been buying products and services through the Chinese people, and the Chinese government does what we would call like a cleanup, they go through lists and they find out, and they see that you're doing business with China. If you want to continue doing businesses, you have to go through their internet, or else they're going to cut you off. Well, that could literally decapitate and crush large corporations in the United States or Canada, where if you have a supplier from China, and now the Chinese government saying, if you want to continue doing business with us, you have to go through our internet. Well, you can't do that if you have a VPN, so they're going to crush it. So now there are companies that are literally going under because they can't use the VPN. They can't reach their suppliers. They can't go through the normal channels. And so this is a way to absorb American and dissolve the economy one corporation at a time, and expanding the Great Firewall out slowly. And people don't understand that it's happening one corporation at a time, one day at a time. Here's the China Investment Monitor. You can go look this up yourself on the internet. You can look up all the industries and all the billions of dollars invested in all the states, in just Q2 in 2018. You can go back and do different years and different quarters, but you're going to see how severely invested the Chinese economy. It's not Chinese; it's really the UN/Vatican economy. It's basically the big club that's using the Chinese people and taking advantage of their goodwill and their capabilities, creating slave environments with no environmental protections, leaving them to suffer in horrible scenarios. So they have to do something to offset it. So they build up cities, and they have a new middle class that's built up. But there's still hundreds of millions of people living in dire situations. But the money is coming back into the U.S. as Chinese investment. So here's an example how you can see how far gone it is. Top U.S. states exporting services to China in 2015. These are just tiny little tidbits to help you see the bigger picture of how world communism is being spread around the world. China's monopoly in rare earth elements tightens with purchases of U.S. mines. So basically they have supposedly up to a 98% monopoly on rare earth minerals. Your iPhone, your iPad, your PS3, your LCD screens, your computers, your televisions, your smart TVs all have rare earth minerals. And if you don't have it, then you don't have all the technology. And who owns the rights and the capabilities and where the bulk of it's coming from? China. So it's not by chance, it's by design. And if things don't work out economically and financially well, there's always talk about potentially war. And God forbid, I would hate for there to be a war. I don't want to see one Chinese man, woman, or child injured or hurt or killed. And I don't want to see any Canadians, Americans, South Americans, Central Caribbean, Jamaican, Israeli. I don't want anybody getting hurt for a war just so you can make a lot of money and roll in a new business model for the whole world, and everybody thinks it's one country against the other. You got to be kidding me. So here back in America, the Democratic Socialists of America, you think, well, we don't have communism in America. It's not going around town. But what is a Democratic Socialist? It's all over the U.S. Project Veritas was exposing a lot of federal employees who say they love to postpone things and create obstacles for the president, the current, I would say, is an actual legitimate U.S. president, not a UN president, a legitimate. He appears to be a legitimate United States for the American people, for free market, for the world, to not let this degrade. And so I'm talking about this now so people can understand that. Here is a symbol of the Democratic Socialists of America. And what is similarity towards the Socialist International, where all the high-level diplomats join the Socialist International and participate, moving the agenda forward of international socialism. Here is their flag. Lots of similarities between the Russian flag, the Russian seal with the harvest of wheat and the red star. And so they're all connected. It's just people aren't seeing the connections. Again, thank you, Jordan Maxwell. You're amazing. You're amazing, Jordan Maxwell. 60 years of teaching everybody. You've been through so much. You're basically my perspective and my perception of you. It's not just because I know you. You're an American hero. If I was in the White House, I would give you the highest honor an American civilian citizen could ever receive. That's what I would do. Why? Because you helped wake up the entire world to world communism. You helped unlock the keys to symbolism around the world, religions, secret societies, the Federal Reserve, all the features of what makes America great and the American people, and what should be for the entire world, not just the U.S. citizenry, everybody. So thank you again. I'm dedicating this to you. So let's see what's happening at the Communist Party of the United States of America. Here's a little bit of a description. You can go look that up on your own. But you see that red banner? Excuse me. It says "Forward," the New York District Communist Party of the United States. Everybody's having a great time, thinking they're making a difference. They don't understand that the communism is well embedded in the United States, and it's all over the place. But you just think it's just with the CPUSA? No, it's not. With the wave of a magic corporate international Vatican UN wand, poof, crystal blue persuasion, we now have the Democratic Party with their crystal blue. Well, where's the connection? Let's move forward together. That's not by accident. It's not by chance. Let's move forward together. It's just another version. It's like French vanilla versus regular vanilla ice cream. It's the same thing. They're both vanilla. Just because I put the word French vanilla doesn't mean it's not vanilla. Here's a bus, forward together. Here's a bus with the Democratic logo and crystal blue persuasion. World communism demonstrating its full colors through crystal blue. And here's the American Jesuit review. So the Jesuits have their own online article, which Democratic presidential hopefuls are talking about their faith. Now I know there's been a lot of hoopla about this woman being Pocahontas, where she has, unfortunately, I would consider it. I don't have the insight of the First Nations people. I don't have their knowledge and wisdom, but I would be personally offended if someone said that I'm with a certain tribe and I'm 1/2000%, but I'm claiming, and then when I apply for my bar card to be a lawyer, I say I'm Native American. Personally, I find that offensive. The Native American, the First Nations people, the Iroquois, whatever you want to call them, our brothers and sisters have been disrespected since day one. They need to be honored, and they need to be respected, and they need to be shown respect. None of their treaties are being honored, in my humble opinion. But we're going to move forward with that. Forward together. Here's the same thing. It's just a different packaging. You don't like vanilla? Here's your French vanilla version. Forward together with Hillary and her bus. Here she is. If you want to vote for her, if she were to run for president, you're voting for a UN candidate, period. Oh, but if you think, I won't vote for her, I'm going to vote for Bernie. I like Bernie. He's going to make things right. Everything's going to be free. So you can jump on your communist bus here and get on the Bernie bus and just have a good time. But here's something else. Moving out of the political arena, a communist dictator, Castro, inspired CNN. Ted Turner admits. So the red square was the original logo, but I wonder if there's a connection there. But the business model changed, and he was brought on board. He became a very wealthy man, and he might be a good person, but he also subscribed to this New World Order, world communism business model, and he was willing to donate $1 billion in 1997 to support the United Nations. So I think he understands what's going on, and so he made a change at the headquarters of CNN. He made it crystal blue persuasion, and so here's the main office, main headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. Obviously, he knows what's going on. And again, Dawn of the New Day, Jordan Maxwell, Cosmocrats. You can get that DVD or stream it for free on his website, Jordan Maxwell Show. He talks about the New Day and how the Communist Party has used that often in political slogans and campaigns and speeches. They'll say a new day is dawning. Jordan Maxwell. Here's what I would call a hit piece for CNN when President Trump, if you look at the Air Force One in the 60s, it was switched over to cyan blue. And basically the short version of the story is that's a UN plane. And so President Trump decided to change the colors. But instead of saying that in the head of the article, they're going to say, out of the blue, a look back at Air Force One's classic design. They're not talking about President Trump being an American president, the first one in my natural lifetime that I'm aware of, who cares about America, who cares about the American people, and wants to do the right thing for the entire world, not just American citizens. He's not going to brush everybody off. He wants the right thing for everybody. But they don't say that in the article. They just say they keep him out of there and just say, "Oh, look at the classic colors." We'll talk about that later. And here's another example. I don't know how they're able to do this. This is directly off the computer with no what do they call it? Photoshop. There's no filters or anything. It looks like they did it themselves. They altered the color of the flag of the Department of Justice. I find this insane because it looks almost like bluish green. But this is what it really looks like in reality. And so even in CNN, they know what they're doing. They have an Army intelligence unit of some kind. I forget what it's exactly called, that works directly in CNN headquarters. And so they what they do is they try to, and what the way they position is that we've got to keep all our enemies off guard. So we have to put out false stories so they can't figure out what's going on. Well, that means it also gets everybody else in America, which means nobody knows what's going on. It's basically everybody at the top's really happy about it. And just speaking of the Department of Justice, they're sitting on a mountain of cash. They're sitting on so much money that I want everybody to think of Scrooge McDuck and DuckTales and how he jumps into a giant building filled with gold coins and he's swimming around. That's what the Department of Justice is doing financially. They probably could cut everybody $1 million bonuses after taxes, and it'd still be money left over for every employee in that entire building, including the janitor. And so I wonder, and I hope, I really do, I hope that they're going to. I think right now with Jordan Maxwell, he was taken advantage of. Actually, right now the Department of Justice most likely is overseeing the case in which a bankruptcy is occurring, where the family who has taken the website of jordanmaxwell.com and all the materials and have claimed it for themselves, they are now in bankruptcy, and now there's a United States agent, part of the bankruptcy, assigned to it, and they're part of the Department of Justice. I wonder if they're going to be looking in to see if there's any inaccurate or inappropriate behavior in this process, because Jordan has not seen any money in many, many years from his website, his products, and I just don't know what's going to happen. But the Department of Justice is now interconnected with this bankruptcy case on the internet. You can look it up yourself. And so I hope the Department of Justice helps investigate this case to see if there's any wrongdoing, that Jordan can get basically no money for multiple years, and then they go bankrupt at the end, and then they're scot-free. I wonder if there's something else to all this. So I wonder what the Department of Justice might do about it, if anything at all. So in the media, too, we're going to continue very quickly. Inside politics, CNN, they add that extra color, crystal blue persuasion, to get you going. Rachel Maddow gets paid tens of millions of dollars to cry on command, and is upset that President Trump is supposedly this and that and all this, and convinces everybody he's horrible. It's unfortunately, it's too bad. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has flaws, but this man has been mistreated unbelievably, and so she's okay because she's making tens of millions. So whatever the prompter says, and most of these people, maybe she likes Trump, who knows, but her contract, anybody who goes into the media has to sign a contract. You can't be you anymore. You only can be what the prompter tells you or what the writers in the back tell you. So she has to project whatever she's told. She cannot say what she really thinks or how she really feels, but since she's getting paid tens of millions, she can behave exactly the way MSNBC wants her to behave. And if you think it stops there with just CNN and MSNBC, media matters. Here we go, boys and girls. Baby blue, crystal blue persuasion, world communism. That's one of their internal things. But if you think it's just a U.S. thing, it's also in Canada. Canada has immediate bailout that will weaken trust in journalism. We should reject it. I'm surprised this article even came out at all. Supposedly, it was $600 million that was issued from the federal government to bolster journalism, all the mainstream media outfits in Canada. And so, if you need to investigate this, don't take my word for it. Look at what's actually happening. Look at and how the money is being spent. Where did it really come from? Here's an example of the Prime Minister of Canada spending a little one-on-one time with George Soros. So I don't know what their relationship is. They're in a picture. I've been in pictures with people. I've met the Prime Minister twice. The first time, I wasn't looking for him. I was just visiting in Ottawa, and just by chance, he was doing a PR thing for hockey, and I saw him, and I got a selfie. That was really interesting. I had a good time. I love Ottawa. And then the second time I met him, he tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, it was him, and he was with his compatriot to garner votes here in Montreal. And so symbolically and spiritually, the way I interpret that is that most people don't get to meet the Prime Minister once in their lifetime at all. If you meet the Prime Minister once up close, that's already something. But if you meet the Prime Minister 2 times in less than 2 years, it tells me something. It doesn't mean I'm better than anybody else. It just means that there's a spiritual matrix on Earth, and Jordan's been talking about it, and I could never put my finger on it. I don't understand what he means by this spiritual matrix. It's stuff that you and I can't answer that happens to us that we can't explain, good and bad. That whatever God is, I don't know what God is, God has a destiny for each and every one of us. We're all special. And I was given a tiny little insight, a tiny little gift. It was, I didn't talk with the Prime Minister. I didn't have a sit down chat. It was just a quick handshake, hello, and a couple pictures. But it tells me something. I didn't go look for him. The first time I found him, and the second time he found me. So he might be an excellent guy, but his business decisions are leaning towards the United Nations, okay? Very important. And if you think it's just a North American thing, it's also happening in the Middle East. Here's Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera with one of their main centers here, media centers. Geez, what an interesting color to pick. I thought the Middle East is all about green. Here it is. UN Blue, Crystal Blue Persuasions. Even the USA Network has it. Here's a hit piece from the USA Today, again about the Air Force One. Look how ridiculous they painted when President Trump decided, I'm going to redesign the color scheme for Air Force One so it looks more American. They put something ridiculous on there to make him look bad. This is a hit piece. If you don't go through hundreds and hundreds of articles every day, 7 days a week, and I'm dedicating the rest of my natural life to helping my education level, to help the American and Canadian people and the people of the world to be educated. That doesn't mean I have all the answers and I own the truth. You may know more than me, but I'm doing my part and helping the human family not be extinguished and become a slave race for those who survive under robots and synthetic life. I'm not interested. So here's their other TV show, The View. They do it, and their cue cards, even on the Colbert Show and other comedian shows, they all have light baby blue cue cards. Look for them. Entertainment with the show Veep. This is not by chance. This is highly structured. They have all the money in the world, and you have the stress of bills and taxes while they're doing all this. Here's Mile 22, a film that came out just recently. There's a part of the movie where there's a special ops team that has to accept a mission to help somebody, and they have to, and one of the persons says once they accept, says you're no longer a U.S. citizen. You have you're now part of a higher loyalty. I wonder what that's all about. If you haven't seen the movie, check it out. And here is Mr. Mark Wahlberg. Again, I've never met him. He might be an absolute stand-up guy, but the Vatican has his eyes on him, and it's too good to resist to be invited to meet the Holy Father. You know how rare the opportunity is? So I can understand why he took it, but does he know about all this? He may not, and so he would get a pass from me if he didn't, because he may be a family man and he cares about other people, and he's not interested in making sure the human family dies in less than 150 years so that world communism can be the final business model to roll out. He may be actually a good guy, so I always give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Here's a president who I would consider a United Nations president. He's not a U.S. president with his New World Order, where he says that a credible United Nations can take a hold. And here in his book, he's wearing the UN colors with a woman here. Here, a train locomotive is being dedicated to him with UN blue, and there's the American flag all the way at the back. This is the most offensive thing I've ever seen. And so people who don't know, I'm showing it to you. It's not Jeffrey Matt. It's what's happening right under all our noses. So here's Obama meeting the boss himself, and we need change that we need. His whole campaign was about change, and now it's crystal blue, and it's crystal blue, and it's crystal blue. And here's an example of the original Communist Party of the USA posted in the 30s, Way to Progress. It's the same thing. He's operating through the communist doctrines, the communist operation, the communist approach. Here it is again, crystal blue. And the oval behind his head, that used to be black. That was changed. I don't know what year it was changed, but it was made blue. They just do one little change at a time, and nobody questions it too much, and then they move on to the next thing. And whoever sent me this book, I don't know who you are. I understand what you did. I can't believe you knew years in advance. Thank you for helping me. And so here's Bernie, in case you still like Bernie. Here's here in Wikipedia, and I understand Wikipedia is not the ultimate source, but he does describe himself as a democratic socialist and progressive. So he's interested in communism as well, crystal blue persuasion. And so Hillary's the same thing. Here she is wearing different shades of the 11 shades. She's so popular as a global communist, they came out with an action figure. She's taking her UN communist air jet by herself in luxury, and we're all wondering what's happened to all the jobs that went to China. And here's Theresa May. She's there to fumble the ball for Brexit. That was her entire job, and she did an amazing job. Somebody's popping champagne right now. And so she got everybody, and what they do is they invert things. There it's called the Conservative Party. If you're in the Commonwealth, New Zealand, other parts of the world, it's called the Conservative Party. So she really fumbled the ball forward. But it's not just in politics, it's also in corporations. Here's an example that's really obvious to me that they might be part of this world communism, global Vatican UN outfit. Here's another one, Universal Postal Union. Look this up, folks. This is an important thing. Apple's part of it. Everybody's heard of the NOAA. IBM for sure, because they're behind a lot of stuff. GE, HP, AT&T for sure, right? 5G and the gang. Bill Gates, guaranteed he's part of the gang. And I used to be an outsourcer for Microsoft. I had the CIO of Microsoft autograph a book because I was successfully helped bring into the market from a customer service standpoint. I was a CSR/supervisor to help bring in the first Microsoft Windows Mobile smartphone in the North American market ever. It was called the MPX 200 by Motorola. And so the CIO at the time was overseeing the project, and I was the guy for the VIP project. I met people at Hollywood. I had to help put together phones and VIP bags, gift baskets for some of the most high-profile people, Jeb Bush, Colin Powell, I think even Dick Cheney. I think he even got one too. I'm not 100% sure. I know that the bags that we sent them into all these people, they were using Halliburton bags. So I know Dick Cheney was involved there as well. But this is he's part of it, right? And so it's not just Windows 8.1, it's 8.10, it's Windows 10. It's all over the place. You highlight text, UN Blue is everywhere. Skype, Twitter, even comic books are politicized. Toy companies, smart cities. Here it is the Chinese billionaire Jack Ma using AI to create dystopian cities? I think so. But he may not be the person doing it all, but I think he's contributing. I don't know if he's understanding what he's contributing to. He may not know. He may know. That'll be up for God and whatever comes down the pipe in the world and life to decide what's going to happen. The London Sperm Bank, the European Sperm Bank. And if you want to get all the genomes of everybody in the world, well, we can start off with whole genome sequence at the Broad Institute on April 25th, 2018. This is just tiny, tiny examples that I'm sifting through tens of thousands for you, for me, to help you see the picture. The Brain Initiative under the Obama administration to decode all the mysteries of the brain. Is it going to help everybody, or is it going to help the AI and help world government? How about pharmaceuticals? Are they part of the game? I wonder. How about intelligence, IARPA, which is a division or branch or interconnected with DARPA? and we can't forget blockchain. That doesn't mean that it's all designed to be New World Order. There are people who go to these conferences, they don't know about any of this, so I don't blame them. I'm looking at the highest levels of everything. Faceception, an Israeli company that has the technology to determine your personality from your facial images, maybe emotional states. So they'll be able to tell if you're unhappy. I think in the book 1984, there's a thing called face crime by George Orwell. It says just the wrong facial expression could get you imprisoned. I wonder. And that's not saying that the Israeli people are bad. I'm talking about the corporate infiltration. The corporate infiltration, and they do all kinds of crazy stuff. This technology could help, but it's I don't think it's going in that direction. So here we go. We're about finished. I want to say this. I don't like endorsing anybody because I've never met the current president, Mr. Donald Trump. I've never met President Trump, so I've never met him, so I don't know for sure. But his actions are starting to paint a picture in my mind about what kind of man is this person? What is he all about? Does he love America? I think he does. I do. And here's a more accurate, real news, or closer to the truth. Trump to change Air Force One color scheme to red, white, and blue instead of those hit pieces by USA Today and CNN. Here's another closer to home, closer to truth, closer to reality. U.S. imposes visa bans on international criminal courts investigators, says Pompeo. So these are things that are happening that people aren't paying attention to because he's supposedly Trump's this and Trump's that. He's not this, he's not that, he's not thinking all this stuff. Ridiculous. UN agrees on migration pact, but U.S. is conspicuously absent. I wonder why. And this is the part I want to thank President Trump the most for. IBM's fast-talking AI machine just lost to a human champion in a live debate. One of the answers that I listened to was a socialistic safety net debate. And I don't have any problem with people. I don't want anybody, if I were to be injured and I was disabled, I wouldn't want to be abandoned by everybody in society. I want to have society back me up because I worked, I paid taxes, but I don't want to be left behind if something happens to me that's outside of my control or something I couldn't help. And so when I heard the answer in this debate, it was a very socialistic, and I thought about it. The Rockefellers donated the land for the UN. All the allopathic medicine is Rockefeller-style medicine. His father in the Rockefeller PBS documentary told, there was an account retold that he cheats his son. And so the Rockefellers found a way to cheat everybody, and so they found a way to corner the market in refining oil. Standard Oil is born, and now and so he felt bad, so he wanted to give back to the people. He didn't give anything back. He created a world corporate infrastructure that's taking everything away of the real potential of the world so that he can maintain a monopoly approach. And the Vatican and the royals, they love this outcome because they're going to manage it. And the Rockefellers, well, if you take all the white papers from allopathic medicine and medical and IBM, Watts and everything, they're financed by the Rockefellers. And so what happens is you're going to get communistic, socialistic answers from the AI because that's all it's accessing. So I don't want a communistic AI. So I want to thank President Trump for signing an order to prioritize and promote AI so I don't have to, our children and our grandchildren don't have to grow up in a world where we have a communistic AI. Okay? And we have death panels that, well, you're too sick, so goodbye, and we're going to offer assisted suicide. And of all the subjects that I could do, and I'm just barely scratching the surface with this presentation. I'm barely scratching the surface. One of the things I'm most interested in to help prevent, if I could, I don't have the power, I don't have the resources, I don't have the diplomatic connections to do it, but I would prevent corporations from creating long, difficult contracts attached to assisted suicide, people who are at their worst stage of their life, who want to die with dignity, where they can have this long contract they just sign off on, like when you start up iTunes or any other large software, you have pages and pages of documentation that nobody reads, like your car owner's manual, nobody reads it. They're going to do that for assisted suicide so they can sample your voice and sample your image and your personality and upload you, and they have a copyright on your person. And they're going to copyright your voice and your children, and for a small price you can visit your grandparents or your grandchildren or your sisters and mothers through a digital cemetery for a monthly subscription like Netflix. No, thank you. I don't want assisted suicide to be turned into a giant strip mall, and then we're going to rape our own family's heritage and our people and our families' members' memories by digitizing them so they can go into a strip mall. No, thank you. So thank you, President Trump, for moving it in a direction that makes more sense. Even in Canada, I want to thank the Canadian Security Intelligence Agency service, CSIS, because I don't suspect, I know there are agents who work in CSIS who care about Canada, who don't want a totalitarian, communistic overlord, and you can't say anything anymore, and they don't want a social credit system. I can't speak for anybody individually there, but I know that it's not all, hey, let's do it, let's go for it, let's leave the UN. And the reason why I feel that way is because Canada did what I would consider a good move to unlock the whole psychology behind what's happening with the 5G and Huawei. Okay, so I want to thank them. And one of the final things I want to say before I end here is even here in Montreal, Canada, and Quebec, there are secret groups that go around and they only appear in universities, they only appear in protests. And I don't know, I can't know because I'm not part of any of it. And I hope they have nothing to do with violence. I hope so. But I know for sure that they promote the ideology, and what they do is they choose special words and special names that are impossible to remember and impossible to look up unless you're part of the inside group of communism in Canada or the communistic movements. And so here's one of the main ones in Canada that hides in plain sight. Curse Plebedeb. Really, do you honestly think you're going to remember that name? Are you honestly going to remember all that? So, and here's one other thing too. President Trump, she's beautiful. I think the First Lady is just wonderful. And so they're helping end the opioid crisis. It's one step at a time. Even his prison reform, which I don't have in this presentation, some people are being freed. They're not being sentenced for as long for there's crazy laws in the sentencing. The highest incarceration on earth is the United States, and he's helping turn the tide. You know how hard it is to pass a law when everybody's infighting all the time? Nothing gets done. That's what gridlock is all there for, to prevent America from being great, to prevent the potential of the people of moving forward and expanding prosperity for everybody, not just for a handful. So again, thank you there. And the people I think I'm going to end with tonight, or with this particular presentation, are the First Nations people. I think the First Nations people deserve a second look in 2019 for those who are not familiar with them, and take a look. It's not just these tribes. There are many tribes all over, and then there's a lot of corruption, and they've been abused, severely abused, and I think there's something that needs to be done. I think Canada has an opportunity to try to do more than just apologize once in the news. They need to do something, and the American, I hope President Trump at some point in his presidency can try to mend some of the difficulties historically, some of the tragedies, the unbelievable losses and traumas that these people have been through, and so they need to be honored. These are the people, these are our brothers and sisters. So I want to extend my warmest regards to them, and I hope there's a brighter future for all of us, including our friends in the First Nations. So that's it. I want to thank everybody for their time today, and I don't know if you have any questions, Adam, or...
No, Jeffrey, wow, thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. That's exactly the kind of thing that we want to be sharing here on Freedom Free for All. We've done probably 6 or 7 shows exposing dastardly United Nations plans since the beginning of the year, everything from vaccines to climate change, AI. And so that had a broad scope, but it was really great. I could have interrupted you with banter, dozens of times throughout the presentation, but I'm glad you had the chance to just get that out there from the beginning to the end, just on your own. That was great. A couple small points was, of course, there was dozens of interesting images, but a couple that kind of sprung to mind, I made a note about was the Smartmatic logo was actually pretty fascinating because after looking at it for a few seconds, I realized it was a serpent, or like also a kind of a spiral if you look at it more from a third dimension rather than flat. So
right.
Yeah, and that reminded me of a logo that we were talking about before. Forget which one it was. The Superman, basically. It looked just like that. So and of course all the different blue, like that, almost that same hue, but at least it falls within the 11 different shades that they have. I couldn't really believe just the sheer volume. It doesn't seem coincidental at all.
No, it isn't. And I think, you see, this is one of the reasons why I very much appreciate your network and you, Adam, personally, because you are very talented. You are doing things for the right reason. And I understand not everybody's going to agree with everything I'm saying, but you have a mind for symbols and you have an open mind. Just like Jordan Maxwell said, your mind's like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open. So your mind's open, and I can learn from you. I can learn from everybody. So I appreciate that I'm going to actually ponder and think about what you said about the S, because there may be, I think one of the Vatican has some sort of conference hall that on the inside it looks like a serpent. Yeah. Has two eyes and has you have to go look it up on Google Images, like Vatican Conference Hall or something like that, and it looks just like a serpent. So maybe you might be onto something with the S's representing serpent. You might be onto something. I really appreciate you bringing that out. God, I want to hear what else you have to do. If you have any other presentations, let me know. I want to hear it. So.
Oh, I did want to say, I want to do this a lot more often because, like I said, this is exactly the information that we need to share and research ourselves. And then other people are going to start researching, their own little bits here and there too. But the UN is incredibly, in my opinion, dangerous. And all of the connections all the way to the Bonaparte bit, that was really crazy. I just am astonished about what a web of intricacy that they've been able to create over the past, hundreds and thousands of years. Like you say, the Council of Nicaea was in 400 something AD. That was like 1700 years ago, and 85 miles of books and information in the Vatican. That's also insane. So, and the whole digitizing it. And of course, one of my favorite topics you touched on a bit, and that was how they're going to basically copyright you and then clone you and upload you. And then the things you were talking about, how it's like how macabre concept of having like a Netflix style subscription service for like your dead relatives or whatever. Oh gosh. And
Barbara Streisand, she cloned her dog, I think 3 times, but they all have different personalities. And so people say, I don't understand this synthetic life. I could do a whole presentation just on that. I could do a whole 2-hour presentation just on the prison industrial complex, on the world business. Well, I already pretty much covered here, and also an international color code that I was able to reverse engineer over 8 years to help you decipher how they came up with this code, and it would explain why they would have picked this color. But what you're talking about is very important. So if you're going to clone, Barbara Streisand is going to clone her dog, and they all have different personalities. They need something to bridge the gap. They need you to go have brain scans for autism, and if you're okay, they have brain scans for research. And now they're going to roll out a scanning device that can read your mind without an MRI machine in the hospital. They'll be able to do it in the street. Well, 5G is the gateway to that. They're going to be able to extract your personality, digitize it, and then they'll be able to upload it into your brain, to a cloned dog, and they'll be able to actually, down the road, Barbara Streisand, if they had waited 30 or 40 years, she could have cloned her dogs again and have a copy of her original dog reintegrated into the clones. So that's what's coming, and so people can't see that right away because this is too outlandish. This is really what I would consider out. It's very far out, and this information, I would be surprised if everybody can absorb it all in one sitting. You may have to watch this more than once. I am not the source of all the answers. I'm just a researcher. I'm a person who cares about the human family. I know the key to helping turn everything around is the United States corporation, and I want Canada to be safe, and I want Canada to do well, and I want everybody to do well. So I did the best that I could. I tried to put in 18 years of research and condense it into roughly 2 hours so that you don't have to go through 18 years, and you can get it all for free. So I hope it benefits whoever's out there. I hope it benefits you.
I really like the way that you do your presentations. You're very well researched, and you plan, I'm sure, many hours to make sure that you can kind of speak eloquently about it for 2.5 hours, which is incredible. But I think for me, I've kind of pegged it at 2030, where they'll be able to sort of successfully clone Barbara Streisand's dog, if you will.
Right.
But it just dawned on me, if you would be so kind, maybe we could do a co-presentation like what you did today, and I'll work with you on preparing the slideshow so that we can kind of do a syncopated A-B kind of, you do a few slides, do your thing, and I'll do a few slides and add to it in different ways, but specifically regarding, AI, transhumanism, medical, enchanted devices, excommunication, and things like that. That would be super cool. But also want to just do a quick shout out for our main man, Jordan Maxwell. This is the DVD Cosmocrats, and that's the cosmos is the world, and the crats are the rulers. So this is all about the world rulers. I highly recommend it. There's some unique stuff in here that you're not going to find in any of his other videos, and you can get it right there on jordanmaxwellshow.com. And I think we'll wrap it up here because, geez, we're like perfectly at a long 2.5 hours. So once again, thank you so much, Jeffrey. We're going to do this again.
Oh, I can't wait for the opportunity. I would love to do a co-project with you because I know I can learn from you, and I would have great. And having fun is so important. And then please encourage Freedom Free for All. If you can make a donation and help Adam and the network and the hosts and everybody who's listening and help Freedom Free for All, then please do so because it is for the right reasons and for a good cause. And I want to extend thanks to Adam and the network and the gang, the employees there, for the unbelievable opportunity for me to come on today. Thank you again.
Okay, awesome, man. That was so rewarding. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. I really appreciate everybody in the chat room. So it was nice to see some wrenches in there and some new faces. That's awesome. Send us an email. What do you think? Comments at freedomfreeforall.com, and our team will read them over and we'll talk about them on air on our next show, which is tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Legendary. Oh. Yo, you got a comment?
Oh, yeah. Don't forget my website too, jeffreymatt.com. Sorry about that. I should have mentioned that earlier.
Of course. Yeah, and I should have mentioned that as well. Jeffrey Matt. I put it in the chat room, jeffreymatt.com. So definitely he's got many slideshows on his website that are about as fascinating as the one we talked about today. This is really crazy stuff. I do some research there myself quite regularly. So once again, thanks everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30. Bye for now.